All right, welcome everyone. Monday, August 16th, 2021. We're here for the regular Orange Township Board of Trustees meeting. Call this meeting to order. Please call roll.
Mr. Grumbles?
Here.
Ms. Triento? Here. Mr. Rivers?
Here. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Okay, we're going to start tonight by entering into a series of zoning hearings. The first zoning hearing tonight that we are scheduled to enter into is pertaining to the Sheets application, RCOD 21-01. The applicant has asked that we continue the hearing tonight due to work they're partaking on the traffic study that we presented last meeting. So we're not going to open that for any sort of work tonight since they've asked to continue it. We're just going to continue that and set up an additional meeting, at which point we'll continue to progress through the application process and have public comment. We do get the emails that you send in and read those, so we are processing those and hearing that. We've had 2 sessions with public comment so far, so we've heard from many of you. And like I said, when that is rescheduled, we'll move forward and open up again for public comments.
Do you know when it will be rescheduled?
So September 7th is the date suggested here.
A lot of people are here because of the Sheets matter.
If I'm not going to open it tonight to public comment, I know that most people are here for the Sheets application. It's important that we get all of the plans together and understand the foundation that we're working from. And we can present that to you when we receive it, so you can digest that and process it and be prepared with comments. The board did take the comments that were shared previously to heart. We asked Sheets to take a look at some things, and they are pertaining to traffic. So we want to give them a chance to put together their full application with revisions before we get into the particulars and debate what may or may not be the case in the future, if that makes sense. So comments tonight will be a little premature in that regard, especially as they pertain to traffic and congestion. Yes, sir.
Just a foundation question.
Can you please state your name and address?
Yes, sorry, Tom, 7911 Perry Road. Is the current application approved pending further approval?
It's not approved yet at all.
It's not approved at all.
That's correct. We have not voted. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close that tonight by reading a resolution here for us to move that forward. Make a motion to approve Resolution 21-266 to continue the hearing date for RCOD 21-01 Sheets.
Second. Mr. Grumbles?
Yes.
Ms. Triento?
Yes.
Mr. Rivers?
Yes. And for record, the date of that meeting will be September 7th, 2021 at 6 p.m. and this will be the venue. Okay, we're going to move into our next zoning hearing tonight. Open a hearing for zoning application RCOD 21-02 for Orange Summit Communities.
Thank you, Chairman Grumbles. This is the application for the Orange Summit Communities. It is a proposed 400-unit development at the southeast corner of Shanahan and US 23. It does include the extension of Rail Timber Way and includes the required open space and meets the majority of the regulations. I'm actually going to turn it over to the applicant that has a presentation planned to describe the project in more detail.
Okay.
Make sure that microphone's up a little bit.
The microphones here aren't connected to a PA system. They're for the audio recording on our YouTube site.
Make sure I talk louder.
Hello, my name is Don Hunter. I'm with Trustee Real Estate Group. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. First of all, we thank the board for the opportunity to be here. We also thank the Orange Township staff who's worked with us through this process, and they've given us a lot of good feedback and guidance. I'm here to represent Orange Summit communities, and this involves a development of the Wilcox communities and also Trustee Real Estate Group. What we'd like to do tonight is share information with you and then address any questions that may be from the audience or from the board. So we want to walk you through a few things. We really want to keep the presentation straightforward and to the point tonight. We just talk about the site plan for a point of reference. We want to talk about compliance of our RCOD application. But really the key is to talk about neighborhood engagement and outreach. We want to spend our time in that and share the details of our efforts there and the guidance that we've been provided by staff in that regard. So the first thing is the site plan. Just want to orient everybody. To the north is Shanahan Road. Then as we move clockwise, to the right side is the extension of Rail Timber Way. Okay? Then the southern boundary, that backs up on the east. It backs up to a number of businesses, but as you move on the west side towards 23, there's a number of businesses there that we share a property boundary with. As you move east, we share a property boundary with a number of homes along Orange Wick North Drive. Okay? Really, what's important to share with you here is that if you look at and I'm going to point out the road system here. Please forgive me for wheeling over here. Today, Rail Timber Way, as you all know, and you've been in many of your homes, and thank you for your time, and your sharing your concerns with us and questions. Rail Timber Way terminates here. That's part of a planned program extension of Rail Timber Way up Shanahan Road. A couple things we want to point out. We have had the opportunity to sit down with the Old Township Crossing Condominium Association. One of the things that is interesting about it is the condo association ground up here, the developer did not extend the road up here. The developer cast the die by putting the road here, and then there's a connection, future connection through here. So what we try to do here is move the road as far east as possible to create a buffer here. We'll talk about buffers there. But I think what we want to point out is that our development will be funding that road. From our perspective, we believe that the condo developer should have funded it up to the north part of their development. That's typically the way it's done. But we're going to, our responsibility in working with the county engineer will be to extend that road north. Okay? Now, that's just to give you Part B is the northern part. That's a Trustee Real Estate Group development with 250 units. The southern part, Part A, is the Wilcox development. Jonathan Wilcox with Wilcox Communities is here. And we have a team of people if we have any questions that we need to address. I'd like to just move quickly through the next couple slides. The compliance. Really, we have a burden, we have an obligation when we bring forward a development plan approval under the RCOD zoning. The property is zoned in a cloud. It is already zoned. We have a burden, we have a requirement, we have the responsibility to comply. And so tonight, we worked with the staff many hours, and we brought forward to the staff, we evaluated 97 metrics. On the zoning, we comply with all the metrics with this qualification. There are multi-use trails, signage, and fencing that when you take a strict interpretation of the code, and we took the strictest one, the one that would be against us, it says maybe we're not in compliance. And so we're only asking for what we consider to be minor variances for multi-use trails, the signage, and the fencing. And we can get into those details later, but we wanted to, I think the staff will agree with us to say that our metrics, what we viewed, we were in agreement with them. They told us where we thought we needed to have variances, and we've accepted that. In terms of architectural compliance, we're in compliance with all metrics. Okay? All buildings, each building will meet the architectural requirements. So what we want to move on to is really, there had been some, in the process, some notices didn't go out right. We really felt that that turned out to be a very positive thing. It allowed us a little extra time to meet with the following individuals. Mike Jones at the Shanahan Road Group of Mike Jones, James Lawson, Bobby Pepper, Joffer Aluden, Ann and Greg Cooper, Bill and Janet Renner. I think the Renners hosted us at a meeting at their home. We met with everybody. We spent about an hour and a half listening to their concerns and their questions. And then earlier in the process, we met with Jack and Ruth Mail. They're the property to their 10-acre property on Shanahan. Ruth, unfortunately, Jack has since died, but Ruth and their son Eric and Jack had asked us to move the road, to have the road against the eastern property line. They felt that was the best buffer for them, and that's what we did with our initial plan and continue today. We met with the Villages Old Tangi Crossing Condominium Association, Ann Byers and Jan Jaffel about 2 weeks ago, and then last week the Blassings, Fred and Meredith, and Mark and Amy hosted us at their home, and we met both families there. So what were the results of that? How have we addressed their concerns? What have we tried to do to be a good neighbor? We want to walk you through that. When you look at the Shanahan Road single-family homes, we have committed, Wes, do you have the site plan board? I think it might be helpful to hold up the site plan board, and we can point to what we've done to try to accommodate things. Am I speaking too loud? I get accused of that at home all the time. Okay, and I'll just hold this, and I'll Wes, thanks. Okay, now I'll do it real quick here. So we have the Shanahan Road homes that sits right here to the south. So maybe Wes, you should hold it. So okay, so
Wes,
here on the.
Wes, if you
Well, yeah, I think you go up there and stand. If that's okay, stand maybe the next. Yeah, be great. Okay, maybe stand a little bit to the right. No, that my right. I'm sorry. Okay, this is like an Abbott and Costello thing. I apologize. So, if you look to the southern border, what we have said to the Shanahan Road single-family homes, that north of their boundary line, we will retain all the trees within 10 feet. We have a buffer then that follows. We've increased that tree buffer to 6 trees per 100 feet. We originally had an evergreen and a mix of deciduous. We're committing to 100% evergreens. Those trees will all be evergreen. As I said, they'll have a height of 6 to 8 feet upon installation. We're going to have a mix of those species of trees: Norway spruce, Serbian spruce, white pine. And then very importantly, and this is going to apply to all the homes on our northern boundary and our southern boundary, the homes are on a septic system. Okay? And what we committed to was to provide every home that borders us on Orangewood Drive south or north, and then on the northern boundary, we're making about a $200,000 additional. We're incurring, both Wilcox and Shotzi Real Estate Group, we're incurring about $200,000 of additional costs. These requirements here are not stipulated by the RCOD. We're running additional sanitary lines at the southern property line, adjacent to the Orangewood Drive homes, and at the northern property line, adjacent to the Shanahan Road homes. And what does that mean? What it means is we're doing 2 things. We're going to run an additional sewer lateral north, an additional sewer lateral south. we will grant at no cost an easement to every homeowner to run a sewer pipe into the pipe that we've built. And what we're trying to do there is give each homeowner an insurance policy. What we mean by this is if they just simply want to tap in, they can do so. They have to have no reason for it other than they want to do it. We'll give them an easement for that. If they have an issue with their system and they think it's more economical to tap in than repair the sanitary system, the septic system, and they could run into an issue with the EPA where an EPA might deny a permit. So what we're doing at our expense, spending additional $200,000 to give each homeowner an insurance policy. Then as we go to Shanahan Road, the rail timberway extension, Wes, that's the road right there. There are two homes there, 388 Shanahan and 444 Shanahan, that they straddle either side of the road. Said differently, the road is extended up. We're purchasing a home, a dilapidated home there. We have that under contract. That's the location of the roadway extension. And then we're doing very similar things. The clubhouse over here, we're buffering that from the home at 160 Shanahan. Then what we're doing in those two areas, 160 Shanahan and on both sides of the rail timberway extension for a 100-foot section, we're putting a continuous wall of 10-foot to 12-foot high green giant arborvitae trees. We'll show you what they look like. The balance of the property line, we're putting 6 to 8 foot high evergreens. And then we've got another section where we've tried to accommodate people's requests. Orange Brook Drive, single family homes, we touched on this. We're going to maintain the existing trees and vegetation 10 feet north of the property line. We're increasing the buffer again to 6 trees per 100 feet, all evergreen mix. We're providing the sanitary sewer access. The developer, in this case, Wilcox, wanted to have an option to put in a privacy fence, but when we sat in the Blassing's backyard and discussed it, there was a concern that the fence might, the installation of it might kill some trees. There's a very solid set of stands of trees in their home, and then when we have trees on our property and then we put a third buffer line, they had requested that we forego the option of a privacy fence, which we're doing. Okay. Now those, I think that may be it on that slide. Okay, additional modifications. I think this might have been a clarification, but the township asked us to commit to all trails being paved with asphalt. We did. Part B, Shanahan Road, right in, right out. That was requested to be right in only. I think that was by the county engineer's office, Wes. We've agreed to that. Now, when in our meetings with the Olentangy Condominium Association, they've requested a few things. We have not been able to reach an agreement with them on everything they've requested. We're a little confused by the requests. They've asked us to allow them to extend a private road into the public road. We will do that under a couple caveats. That would require us to redo the detention basin. That's not a problem. We'll do that. That would have to be subject to the approval of the county engineer. Okay? We also wanted to create a walkway connection. Again, one of the things, we have a series of, Wes, we have walkways on both sides of, we have a paved
asphalt trail.
Okay.
Sidewalk.
Okay. So what we're trying to do in the spirit of the RCOD and also from your standards, have a walkable community. Where we're having a little bit trouble accommodating, we want to accommodate everybody's requests that we can, is there's a sidewalk that goes to Wintergreen Way. That's on our plan. We've been requested to remove that because the condominium association doesn't, we understand they don't want people walking through, but we've also been requested to build their road for them, grant them an easement, pay for a private road, and then put in gates to create, we're unable to get there with them. So what we've agreed to do, and we put in writing, is that if the condominium association says they want a roadway connection, we'll grant them the easement at no cost. And that is subject to the county engineer approving that. And then there were some concerns about landscaping. We think we've landscaped the heck out of it. but we would also, we can't, they wanted us to landscape on their property. We cannot do that. There are no easements. We offered a landscaping allowance for them to do it. So we're trying to meet everybody more than halfway. I think in summary, what the takeaway here is, in presenting this to the board for your consideration, is all of for the most part, I think everything out of here is something that is well above and beyond the compliance requirements. Our goal is to be responsive, respectful, and a responsive neighbor, and meet everybody more than halfway in trying to give them what has been asked and to address concerns. So I'm going to pause there and move on to the engagements in the meetings with the neighbors are really good. People are very respectful. Everybody's very kind. We had, I think, good dialogue. We were harmonious discussions. I want to walk through an issue that has been raised, okay, and move into the next slide, if I could. Okay, here's when we met with everybody. What we wanted to do is to make sure that we understood your situation as best we could and respond to it. And I think we're good. We all would rather, if we could, have an field behind the house. And I think that's a reasonable desire. It may not be a practical one. You also want to know the fear of the unknown is a very, very reasonable concern. What's going to go behind my house? What am I going to be next to? And then what we heard consistently was we heard two things. How does that impact my property value, where I'm raising my community? And then what are you doing for the community? And so we want to address those very specifically, because where you live, where you have your children, where you educate them is the most important thing in your world. And you have every right to want to know and to have a specific answer that addresses those concerns. So we're going to talk about how does a Wilcox and Chauncey real estate group rental community impact a single family home. And we're going to let other people do their talking for us. We're going to show you an example, okay? So we're going to flip through this. We have been fortunate enough to work with very good communities here in Central Ohio. Orange Township, we've had a very good track record. We've also established a track record with Liberty Township. And we're proud of that track record. And we want to talk about what's happening with Hyatt's Crossing and Liberty Grand communities. These are two, I think everybody knows where the intersection of Sawmill Parkway and Home Road is. That's right where Liberty High School is. There's two middle schools, I think 2 grade, a middle. It's an educational center, okay? So it's a very important location. We purchased, Johnson Real Estate Group purchased 280 acres a year and a half ago. And there are 2 single-family developments. Hyatt's Crossing, which is built by Pulte. They have 86 single-family homes. Liberty Grand Communities, which has 479 single-family homes, next to Chauncey Real Estate Group's 470 rental units. The homes there's 2 key things to share with you. Pulte and MI came into this development after we received our zoning. They started their construction after they received their zoning. They were part of the development. And these homes are selling for $350,000 to $400,000 and above. So they're very compatible. And let me share with you, we'll walk through this. This is Liberty Grand Boulevard. And you can see the new homes being constructed. It's an aerial. This is an aerial on the MI Homes website. And this is another example. So we have a multifamily community, rental community under construction, and Pulte and MI have multifamily single-family rental communities under construction. They'll go to the next slide. These are the homes that are being built and sold today next to our rental community. And again, our rental community was first. Pulte and MI came second. So we'll just flip through these. This is just to show you. And these are the interiors of the models. This is all off of the MI Homes website and the Pulte website. And we can flip through them. So then we want to talk about, so here the impacts are. We think that we will not hurt the property values. In many ways, we think we the quality of our development will take away the fear of the unknown, and it will have a very high-end community next to you. Rail Timber Way to extension to Shanahan Road. We were concerned with the two homeowners. They have a legitimate concern of having a road next to them. Here's what it will look like when we do that. This is the current home we're buying, 418 Shanahan. It's in disrepair, it's dilapidated. An investor who flips homes bought it, and he communicated to us that he got in way over his head. There were 4 feet of water in the basement, the roof's collapsing, the home's been in disrepair for years. I think it was going to foreclosure, it didn't make it all the way there, and the investor bought it. We were in contract to buy this home from the investor, and I'll flip through this. This is what the home looks like today. So we think removal of this eyesore benefits the community. And it's in terrible shape. Of any look at the home, we're not certain that it can be renovated. And we think that's what the investor found out when they bought it. So what we're doing on either side of the road, 100 feet, this is the green arborvitaes that will provide a shield and a wall. And we've received an email from both homeowners that we sat down and worked through this with them, and they sent each individual homeowner or their family representative sent an email today saying that they are in agreement and they see that our development plan is acceptable to them. So we've worked very closely with them and tried to get them comfortable with our screening. And Jeff, I think that's fair. You've received the emails?
Yeah, we received all the stuff to start over.
Okay. And so, again, I just want to flip. I'm not going to spend time. White pine, this is just showing you the trees we've committed to. They're very large. They will grow together. They will form a very positive screen wall on both north-south. And then I think we'll keep flipping here. We don't need to go. We just, in case we had questions, we had an appendix to go to. I think lastly, one of the questions we've gotten is, what are you doing for the community? Okay. Well, there's some positives overall in terms of economic development of bringing our renters into the community. Their future, we'll have empty nesters predominantly, young folks that are right out of college, like my children's age. We think that's good for the housing continuum. We're not going to go on an economic development dissertation here, but it's proven by much research, the 2015 plan, that having an expansion of the housing continuum is good for a community. It allows more generations to live in the same community. But from an economic development standpoint, we will pay in excess of $2 million a year in new property taxes to the community. That benefits the township. That significantly benefits the school district. Every child in the Olentangy School District, there has to be the break even in property taxes to educate a student in the Olentangy school system is $14,000 in property taxes per child per home. The reason it's $14,000 is approximately 75% of the taxes that are paid, 75 cents on the dollar, go to the Olentangy school systems. So Olentangy will tell you it's about $11,000 per student to educate a student each and every year. You have to pay $14,500 in property taxes per child to get $11,000 for the school district to educate them. So we're proud of what we're doing here. We feel that we've done, really worked hard to accommodate most everyone's concerns and issues with specific changes to the plan. We're going to be building a road system that's beneficial to the community, and we've tried to minimize that impact on our neighbors. And we appreciate the time. We ask for your approval vote tonight, but we're here to address questions from the board or anyone else. And I'm going to sit down unless there are questions.
Well, I'm going to go over a few things here, Mr. Hunter. So just since we have quite a large group tonight, I'm going to go over a couple of ground rules.
Okay.
When we open to public comment, you're welcome to come up and speak. You'll have to state your name and address, and your comments will be limited to 3 minutes each. Please keep your comments limited to the merits of the application. Personal attacks on the applicant, township officials, or other residents will not be tolerated. And if you do those things, you'll lose your right to speak. So in the order we typically proceed, staff will present, which they have, the applicant presents. Do you have any other concerns or comments, Jeff?
Everything has been addressed from our standpoint. We've incorporated all of the agreements with the neighbors into the resolution.
Okay. And then after the applicant, the Board of Trustees will comment and ask our questions. After that, the applicant will respond to us, and then we'll open to public comment. The applicant will respond as necessary to those comments, and we'll conclude with any additional board comments or questions, and then we'll vote. Okay, so I'll turn to the fellow board members now, and if you have any concerns, comments, questions for Mr. Hunter.
When the public does come up, please spell your last name for the person recording the minutes for this. Mr. Hunter, I did have you talked about the 200,000 regarding I'm okay with you sitting.
Okay.
But for the sanitary, are you stating that you would be paying for hookups for each of the homes that are affected?
No, we're not.
So explain the insurance policy to me.
Okay, so in order to effectively tie in, we have to deliver a sewer lateral to the property boundary. We deliver our sewer laterals to the rental community. We're running an extra line along the southern our northern property line, the southern property line of the Shanahan Road property. Then we're doing, the Wilcox communities is doing the same. So we're adding the expense of bringing in an extra pipe that we will not use, that will tie into the sewer and water system, the sewer system. So in other words, if we didn't do that, there's no practical way for our adjoining property owners to tie in. So it's a marginal additional expense. So we're doing that. We're incurring that construction cost at additional expense. And then we're granting an easement to each individual property owner. They would, if they don't have to tie in. If they do, they would have to pay the tap fee, and they would have to hire a plumber to run the line. One of the things that we shared with the homeowners was, and you'll hear a request, they've asked us, why don't you pay for that? We said, really, we can't open that can of worms. But secondly, you don't have to incur the expense. No one's asking you to go away from your septic system. Depending upon, the county has a program. If you qualify for the program, they reduce the cost in half and then spread it out over your property taxes. So, but what it does do, and what we explained is, you don't have to, you as a homeowner do not have to incur the expense to tie in. But you may choose to incur that expense right before you sell your home, because it will increase the market value of your home. So in short, what we're doing is we're incurring $2,000 of additional expense to create flexibility in a moderately cost insurance policy that will benefit our neighbors.
It's 200,000, right?
200, yes.
So is there a way to kind of estimate? I've actually spoken with several residents in that area about I've spoken to a few residents there about their desire to get onto the county system. They had problems with the properties and so forth. And part of the barrier to that was just difficulty getting into the ability to tap, like having an accessible line to tap and the costs associated with it. With your running those additional lines, can you speak to, future state, what it would, what it might mean from a cost standpoint over just roughly?
Yeah, well,
it's pretty significant, is it not? I mean,
well, it depends upon how you view it, because it is. It's not inexpensive. The tap fee for sewer is in the neighborhood of $8,100 per tap. Okay, and then there would be about 30 feet per foot of pipe. But again, there's not a requirement to do it. So one of the conversations that we had with homeowners is the marketplace, when you go sell your house, will reflect whether you have a septic system or whether you're in a public system. And there would be no way, unless we spent the $200,000, again, we're not getting any benefit from that. What we're trying to do is we're trying to we've sized the system, we've worked with the regional sanitary, even from the south, they're going to flow north. Okay? So we've sized everything, we're designing everything, and we're spending the extra dollars to give people the ability to do that. Now, the county, depending upon income levels, there's a qualification. The county will reduce that 8,100 by half and then spread it out over 10 years under, that's my understanding of it. I hope I'm not misspeaking.
Well, they're here,
And we'll do that.
non-sanitary.
No, I don't know that the county engineer is going to commit the sanitary group any more than he wants them to
Right,
commit,
exactly.
sanitary to commit them. But that's our understanding of the project. So,
Any other questions? I'm happy to move forward with public comment.
I do want to say that the only comment I have is I feel like you've appreciate the effort you've gone through. It's not a requirement, and I do want to make that clear to the residents that we get a lot of applications here for different things: housing, multifamily housing, commercial, and so you have a whole, just like in any other walk of life, you get a whole mixture of approach. And this, I do want to say, is it's a fair approach to put that much effort in, to pause in the process to ensure that they have a chance to have a conversation with residents and neighboring entities. So those are things that I know happen that you may not be aware of. So it's if nothing else, a good faith gesture. It's appreciated by me as a board member. You considered our township and our township residents to that extent. The only other thing I'll say is with an overlay district, originally when the overlay came about, there were less restrictions, and towards the end, I actually worked with our zoning director because recognizing that, we needed balance in the township. And so that resulted in a cap and splitting the overlay into zones. So each zone has a capacity of a certain style of home that they can build there. And then the rest of the overlay in that zone will be, isolated to other commercial opportunities and whatever it's zoned for. So industrial, commercial, jobs, things like that, office buildings. So my understanding is that this development will consume predominantly all or most of that northernmost zone. There's 3 zones. The other 2 zones, are partially, that included existing multifamily homes when it was voted and approved. So it wasn't that we started at 0 and we would add additional homes to get to that max number. It was everything that was already there plus, what would be built. So this, with our zoning the way it's written, would speak to that whole overlay area and that area of the overlay district, that top zone. So you're not going to have to worry about this continual process right next to your house, if you will. This community accounts for that entire zone. Is that fair?
That is correct. This segment allows for 400 units, and this is 400 units.
Okay, so it's done in that zone, and that would be one consistent community versus 4 or 5 that are all different, scattered around. So I did want to point that out as well. When they apply it with the overlay district, Mr. Hunter made a few points that are worth reiterating. We have a certain criteria that they apply under and that they put together with their application, and kind of meet back and forth with our zoning board and our zoning office to get calibrated on the requirements and what they're offering. If they meet the requirements that we've laid forth in our zoning, this board is really limited in voting to what we have to object to. Meaning that if they put forth a series of divergences or things that don't meet the zoning requirements, it allows us to appeal or vote against that application. If they meet the requirements within the zoning, we don't have that real ability. It puts the township in liability if we were to revert from what we put forth publicly and said we want to come here and how we want it to come. So I want you to keep those things in mind when as we move through the rest of this hearing. I think it's important, and it's one thing when I was a resident I didn't understand quite as well. It took a while to really get up to speed and understand all the nuances of zoning, and there are quite a few. That's why you see so many lawyers and things like that involved, is because very particular zoning laws are. Okay, so I'll open up to public comment now. If you'd like to step up and make comments, you'll need to say your name and address for the record. And again, please spell your last name for our recorder. And you'll have 3 minutes to share your comments or concerns.
How you guys doing? I'm just going to show you a couple pictures that I brought along before we get started. My name is Michael Jones, Jones. I live at 218 Shanahan Road. Which has some pictures of some safety issues. Just kind of show you what the future looks like. And these are other Shanahan properties. Like to see what our neighborhood will look like. All right. So I've met several times as a community to discuss how we feel based on what this project offers and what it affects will be dealt directly by those, or directly to those surrounded by this project, a multifamily unit apartment complex. As a consensus, we all feel the project will only create negative ripple effects. I will highlight a few. They're only doing what the county asks, from what I hear, by completing the trail, adding septic, creating taxes for the county. As a community, we feel we should. Sorry, I only have 3 minutes, so. We feel we should benefit from the project that is going to make the investors millions and leave us, the community, with an apartment complex that will only add to traffic and eventually deteriorate to another unneeded multi-unit eyesore. I'd like to highlight a bit more. First, traffic on Shanahan Road, a 250-unit apartment complex with, say, 250 cars a day for a one-bedroom, 750 cars a day up to a three-bedroom, directly flowing onto Shanahan Road as they turn in and exit are both dumping onto our road, which are already impacted by the Evans Farm, 1,500 homes. Traffic is already nonstop. This will do nothing but continue to congest an already congested area, which only affects us, the ones surrounded by the project. Again, no benefit. The only thing we'd like to sense that would make sense is if there was emphasis on Highway 23, and that makes more sense for us as a community. Property values, very simple, supply and demand, basic economics. I've met with a local realtor, which I have a statement of, who stated clearly, if you have apartments behind your house, the amount of buyers goes down, which means your house is less in demand, which then means your property values will not appreciate with the rest of your neighbors, not living behind apartments. Less demand means less buyers, which means lower property values. Single-family homes and condos do not affect property values in such a way, and I do have a statement of record from my realtor friend. Next, the project offers nothing to us. The community, like I said, directly affected by the additional traffic, decreased home values, eventual eyesore. They're also not tying us into the sewer, nor offering us any concessions or discount to help with that $15,000 to $20,000 fee that we've incurred. It's $8,000 tapping fee, and if you don't make less than $48,000 a year, you don't qualify for their discount. And then it's $35 to $40 a square foot times 250 feet is about $8,000 to $9,000. So you're looking at $17,000. Low end. Realistically, we know it's going to be more than that. We are forced to tap into theirs per county guidelines. If the septic system is in disrepair, we can't repair or replace if we have an option to tap into a sewer. So therefore, it's not really a benefit to us. The truth is we don't qualify the discounted, like I said, just $8,000 fee, and we must pay to connect out of our own pockets. The traffic created is directly going to impact us by not putting an entrance on Highway 23. I want to talk about the apartments as well, what they will be. I've been in the industry over 20 years building and remodeling residential properties. I know they say they're upscale high-end properties, and they may well be now. However, this will not be in 10 years. That is clear by the pictures I've showed you. I'm certain that we've seen this time and time again in 10 years, 15 years when these guys are long gone and nobody wants to pay what it actually costs to keep these updated, attractive, these apartments updated and attractive to current market renters and leasers. These will be average apartments struggling to keep units filled, so forced to drop prices and their leases, then which incur the class of tenants to steadily decline. Rinse and repeat. Ultimately, we'd rather this project be moved to single-family homes or condos. We already have apartments in Lewis Center, and it's very clear there's no benefit to us as a community. So, who benefits, I ask? Well, for sure the investors, Schottenstein, They are sure to profit heavily from this project. Who else? The county, they get tons of new taxes and funding to complete the roads. And then there's Orange Township. I thought you guys were here, to help us keep this from happening. At this point, I'm not sure what the benefit is, but it's clearly not benefiting us. I ask you to please make that make sense to us. I thank you for your time, consideration. I'd just like to say real quick, the border, 100 trees, divided by 6 is 16 foot per tree, so there's no trees that are 16 foot wide, so there's going to be plenty of space for people to kind of just mosey in and out our neighborhoods. The septic insurance policy, again, doesn't affect the property value loss. So, thank you for your time.
Hi, my name is Fred Blasing, B-L-A-S-I-N-G, 201 Orange Wick Drive, North. Good seeing you again, Don. Question, does Schottenstein's own MI homes? Not anymore. Okay. Have a few questions, comments. First comment is, as I said, I live on Orange Wick Drive, and on the southwest, corner of the proposed development, there's a pond there that's surrounded by brush. I just like to say, I hate to see that thing go. It's awesome. I walk my dogs around that almost nightly. In the wintertime, I walk the dogs across it. We talked to one of our neighbors who's been in the neighborhood for a long time, and she ice skated on it as a little girl. So I just hate to see that pond go. Question for the board. Have we done any type of traffic survey? See how this is going to affect not only Rail Timber, 23, Shanahan, Olentangy Commons, but the whole area. Because if we're putting 400 units in there, I'm guessing we're going to have another 700 to 1,000 cars that we're going to have to contend with. So that's a question I have for the board. I would like to state that I would rather see homes built in there. I gathered from what Don Hunter said is there's not a timeline on the sewer. We don't have to do it during the construction process.
Can I answer the question? I'm on doing protocol. Yes, so, Fred, you could do it whenever, or never.
Okay.
It's your option.
Understood. I would agree, I would disagree, and I would like to say I believe that our home values will not continue to increase when the apartments are built. So that's something as homeowners that we're going to have to absorb. I just bought this house a year ago. To be honest with you, had I known this was happening a year ago, I wouldn't have bought my house. So I'm going to absorb the devaluation of my home. So I would respectfully request that the developer, the township, or the county pay for the hookup for our sewer to the sewer that the developer is installing. Thank you for your time.
Hello everyone. My name is Mohammed Alauddin. I live on 364 Shanahan Road.
Can you spell your last name, please?
Alauddin. Thank you for this opportunity. Can I walk over there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of the concerns I have, first thing is the identity. US 23 is already 20% above the capacity, right? We are in the 400 roads right from those roads. We have another 1,500 roads that will be in this road or this road. I went on Timberway Road, the Timberway Road. It connects Untitled Crossing, which does not lead to any other roads, and it connects Shanahan. I don't see any benefit of this right away except for these communities. I think nobody else is going to use this. But when I reached out to the city, they said it will be kind of relieving the traffic on 23. I don't see that happening this way. Right? And then the next point again is the apartment. We are doing apartment right here. And I have the question to Don in there. There is no clear separation between this house and the apartment. What is the guarantee? I live in an apartment before. and we had similar all the communities, we had young apartments. We always had complaints. The apartments will complain, the neighbors will complain, kids running around, kids throwing things, trash happening, that. I don't see that happening. And I don't want that kind of people that bring that bad taste between all of the neighbors. And the problems here, I bought this house in March. I spoke to the Delaware City and the sewer department. They said, no one is going to build this. We will ask them to lay the sewer. So even if this is not an apartment, the city was going to ask them to lay the sewer project. So it's not like it's a benefit or a big kind of that's the statement coming from the city, right? And to the point, cost of 4,000 and then on top of another 18,000, yes, 17 to 20,000 at minimum. Apart from that, the other thing is the road extension of San Andrew. That's going to happen in another 2 to 3 years. That will exactly be running on this road. All these houses will lose land on there. Right? It's a lose-lose situation. We kind of sandwich right in between this and we will not have anywhere else. With the kids, the families, I just moved in, but I know people are living here for like 15, 20 years. Most of them are like retired. I don't know how they will come up and start spending money on the house. I really hope the council will consider existing families on that. Thank you.
William Butler, B-U-T-L-E-R, 243 Shanahan Road. We're on the north side. We're in Berlin County, not your township, but this is definitely going to affect us. Shanahan Road right now, we have heavy school bus traffic. We have cars with boat trailers going through all the time. Heavy traffic, especially during school time. Now you're going to add 200 to 400 cars a day to Shanahan Road. And what is the schedule on improving Shanahan Road? You don't know, do you? Does anybody know? You're putting money into Delaware County, but what's the program? Nobody knows? Are we going to make it a 2-lane road, a 4-lane road, or shoulders? What are we going to do with it? And we have Rockford Homes down there and Evans Farm, and this is more suited for single-family homes, in my opinion. And this will drive our property values down. And I think all of our neighbors will agree with that. So that's all I have to say.
My name is Anna Byers, B-Y-E-R-S. I live at 5888 Bluestone Lake. I am actually the president of the association board from the condos. So I'm here with my board members. So I actually live in this unit right here. When we bought into it, there were already fire hydrants back here. Where we were told that this would be a second, winter would be a second entrance. Again, that might be something we need to take up with you guys later because it wasn't built out when we first moved in. But there are fire hydrants here in the class area. It does dead end here in Wilkes-Barre. On the plans when we bought into it, did extend Wilkes-Barre to Winchester. Second is I live in this building and I got a notice for this hearing. There are 26 buildings in our community and not everyone. I only know of my building that got a notice for this hearing. So I've asked my other board members to live in other buildings and they did not receive a notice for this hearing. I did put an email blast out to our community to see if they could attend because this does impact them. I also have a son that goes to Old County High School. The easiest way to drop my son off is out here. This is the Virgin exit that goes to Old County. It's on Old County property. We can't drive through. There is a gate there. We only use it if it's an emergency. But if something is to happen in our community, we don't have a second entrance. We would need to call the school board, talk to Mark Ray, put in a notice to get those removed and to use that as a second entrance if anything happens in our community. We have 156 units, which is 156 owners, and it's 26 buildings. The traffic, along with everybody else, if I go take my son to school and I go out Laurel Timber Way to Olentangy Crossing North, it is backed up, and I live this close. It's backed all the way up to 23, and kids cannot turn into from 23 on here because it's up, and also we're on Timber Way. And these are some new student drivers that are attending the high school. So it's backed up, and sometimes I have to wait an additional 15 to 20 minutes. So if we're gonna add additional 400 units, that is gonna have an impact on us, and we need to figure out how we're gonna handle that situation with them going to school. Another issue that our development has is on football nights, because the stadium is like right here. We do have people coming in and charge community parking, because parking is an issue at the location. So one of our things was, I think was talked about earlier, is private gaming in our community, but that's additional expense, you know, we can take to the board, take to our community, and that could be something we can resolve, but I'm not sure what's gonna happen or the impact of this issue. And again, my biggest thing is, not everybody was notified.
I believe it's the property that abuts the development. That's
But
why
the
you're.
problem is, our common land belongs to everybody. That common land belongs to everybody in our community.
Who was that comment?
She said that they were only gonna do it for the property that butted up against them.
It's the zoning requirement.
She was only 200.
So it's only 200 feet, so I got it because I live here, but you didn't get it because you're not 200 feet. My question was, because it's common ground, it's actually owned by everybody in the community. So I had just requested that everyone would get it. That's.
John Minott, M-I-N-O-T-T, 240 Orangewood Drive North. My comments, as they were previously 2 weeks ago, pretty much the same thing, traffic. We're in the community just south of this subdivision that's being built. Currently, we have 150 condos, et cetera. The previous person was talking, has cars in there that go out the road in front of us. Our subdivision was built, I think it was one of the original ones in the community, at least 20 years ago. It was designed for 8 possible houses. No traffic connection at all except at Route 23 at that time. It's since been changed where traffic is tapped into the mall complex and also the new subdivisions that she was just talking about. So we get a lot of traffic coming from them. 150 condo units, which probably means 1.5 cars a day or something like that, all coming at rush hour, morning and evening. In addition, we have a nice new neighbor, business neighbor, who runs car training for students. 5 or 6 cars running constantly, coming in and out about every hour. The traffic is getting a little bit terrible, and the new complex is going to throw out over 400 families worth of cars, which is probably, I'm guessing, 600 cars, maybe something on that order. Granted, half of them might run north, although I think most of the traffic's going to be running in our direction south. Columbus is closer. But you're going to be looking at some major traffic problems. From the new subdivision, if you're going out of that complex and going south to Columbus, you can go right up to our road, go down our short stretch of the road, which runs into 23. You can't go all the way out. You have to go on the Long Orangewood Drive south, which bends over to the mall, which was never designed for heavy traffic. It has difficulty handling 2 cars at the same time. It was not built under current standards. It was over 20 years old. There's been cases where I've seen very near misses on that south road where people coming from 2 different directions, the traffic is not easy to spot in advance. If you're not paying attention, you can get a wreck. In front of my house, which is the one on the south end where it ties into the road, it's a little bit wider, but only about a foot wider. That's a new addition they put in recently. That's, again, We get a lot of traffic from the existing mall or existing condo complex. They come down, visit our place. They walk through it all the time, which is fine. They run their dogs and their kids and their bicycles and everything else down there, which that's fine. Cars are a different matter. I think you're going to end up a couple of years from now when the complex is all in and running and filled up. You're going to have a traffic jam that won't quit. I don't have a good answer for it. Speed bumps have been mentioned, but I've heard comments that they don't really work. But I've seen people drive down that road, which is listed for 25 miles an hour, going over 40. So far, I haven't seen any major accidents, but in the future, I expect I will. And what's worse, I think if we had an accident, it's going to be some kid that's driving a bicycle or walking across the road. Currently, they have no worries about it. They go charging across the road at any time. Most in the condo complex, same thing. Their kids come down quite frequently, which again, it's fine to see them around, but when the traffic gets heavy, it's not going to be good. That's all I have.
Lisa Bloomer, B-L-O-O-M-E-R, 5923 Bluestone Lane. Just a couple of questions for you. With the additional number of homes and apartments in there, what is that going to do with our school system? Do we have the availability for all these new children moving in? Are we going to need to build more schools and make room for these children? Because that will affect our taxes. So interested in knowing, do we have the capacity for this for our existing school system? The sewer system only, if I understand it correctly, only is for the benefit of the single-family homes. It will not be a benefit to the villas at Olentangy, if I understand that correctly. Okay? And do we have, as far as pricing or marketability information of what price range are the homes going to be, as well as the marketability of the apartments as far as rental rates and things like that?
We can, at the end.
Once the public comments are all done, I'm taking notes here, and the team is as well, and we'll make sure that the questions are addressed.
Pardon me for interrupting. I'm taking notes on my phone, and what I thought with the board's permission is that questions are being asked that we know the answer for. I'm jotting down notes and we'll recap them all.
That's correct. The process that I spoke to earlier, we'll give the applicant time to answer all the questions you have. So we're all noting that now, and if any are missed, you can speak up and remind.
And my biggest concern is the school system for our children and what it's going to cost us in our taxes if we need to improve our school system. Okay. Thank you.
My name is David Leonard, 5835 Yellowfin Lane, Villa Center. I have two questions that I'm not really clear about. I'm assuming that rail timber is going to run all the way through to Kroger's. Does that make any sense to anyone? No, I mean the new connection.
The new connection is going to go up more to Shanahan.
All the way through.
All the way through.
So we're gonna, and anybody who lives here who wants to go to Kroger's is gonna go down that road?
That's right.
Yes.
Does that make any sense to you? If you live there, it's there's a 3-second light onto 23 at the school there, and it backs up in the morning, it backs up at night, and I just don't understand it. Plus, behind the stadium, there's a 200-foot no sidewalk that I walk my dog on every day, and sometimes almost get run over because I have to walk in the street. So now we're going to put 800 more cars a day, probably 600 to 800 cars a day. Maybe 300 of them are up and down this road. Why even design it that way? It's a terrible design to run it that way, because if I want to go to Kroger's from their place, I'm running it all the way down through there with all that traffic. I just don't understand that. That it should feed out some other way, because that's just not safe. Even if you're walking on the sidewalk, there's kid drivers, there's people distracted. There's a little hump right there by the stadium where drivers can't see you when you're walking on the road without a sidewalk. So even if you do go through with this, somehow you need to fix that behind the high school so people can walk on the sidewalk instead of walking on the street. And somehow they probably should redesign that. That's just a terrible design.
James Lawson, Lawson. I'm at 300 Shanahan Road. And welcome. Hi. How's everybody doing? Good. It seems like the Orange Township is kind of in murky water. I don't know why I feel that way, but I do. Not everybody received communication about the meeting. Like, that's kind of weird. To hear it again, it's kind of reiterated. Like, oh, okay. But either way, so my understanding was that they had to put the sewer line along the single family homes. It was like a law, right? So the $200,000 insurance claim or whatever, you're great, don't get me wrong. It seems like it had to be there, right? So, which we have septic systems, right? So if the county, or let's more say the health department, if the health department knows that that line's there, we have any fault whatsoever with our system, they're going to make sure they shut it down because they don't want those systems. So we're going to incur that cost regardless, right? So that's going to happen. It'd be great for someone to pick up that cost completely. We don't want to deal with it, period. Now, also, my only gripe was, okay, so I have, let's see, let's kind of moving that over to touch that loss. So I'm right here. This 24/7 gas station is right there. I have a couple of bushes that are going to help people from not cutting across the property. I want to fence. I know it was mentioned in the report or whatever it was talked about. They told me that they would not even consider a fence. It's not part of what they're willing to do, period. I want a fence. I think it should be considered. Outside of that, I mean, the traffic report, you guys know about the traffic report. You know, come on, that's ridiculous. But, you know, hey, business is business. I'm all for it. If I could get my wife to put the house up for sale, it's obviously in my best interest. There's no doubt about it. But yeah, that's all I got to say. Thanks so much.
I'm Michael McBride, McBride. I live at 594 Redwood Lane. I'm also in the village of Olentangy Crossing. Sorry. One thing that hasn't been mentioned, it was talking about traffic. It's going to be hideous with potentially an extra 1,000 or 1,500 residents in such a small area with all those cars. But traffic. What about noise? Noise is going to be awful. I don't know how, this is a question, how long is this going to take to get built? So we're right there, hit saws and hammers and God knows what from 9 o'clock in the morning to whatever the stopping time is. It's going to be very, very terrible. I moved to a quiet community, I thought. Secondly, actually, you know where it is. We were talking about the sidewalk, or the lack of. It's not actually on the map. We do have a football field is down here. I live on Redwood Lane, which comes down this way. And I back up from the football field. That's why I was once in a while. But the sidewalk is down here, rail timber, and it ends right here. You can't get to the over a sidewalk, because I believe that's owned by Old Henry School. And they didn't put the sidewalk, they didn't build the sidewalk, or whatever, the sidewalk on there. So right now, we have no way to walk on the sidewalk out of our property to Kroger, about 200, 300 feet. So there's a sidewalk, this is a pretty single family house there, but it's not down over here. That's what I would say. This is going to be very noisy, and rail timber is going to be an extension really of 23. Do you want to skip all the lights on 23? That's awesome. Just go to Old Station. Yeah. Go to rail timber. Yeah. That's what happened. Yeah, 1,000 people going to Kroger. It's going to be hideous. Yes. It's a major highway. Put the entrance in the highway, right? That's terrible. Right.
Laura Seltzer, SELTZER, 5927 Bluestone Way. I just want to check on the math here of $2 million worth of property taxes and $14,000 per child per home. We're putting 400 homes in. Net, where does that fall for us? Because I don't think it works out in our favor. The people who are talking about extending our evergreen into there, I don't want that, because if they extend that over to rail timber, the people, all of these new people, are going to need to drop their kids off at school. In order to drop their kids off at school, they need to drive through the villages at Olentangy Crossing. It would be a nightmare in the morning because there's no way out except the main entrance. So they're going to drive into our thing, drop their kids off, and then fill up our neighborhood going through at probably higher than the speed limit. Also, if anybody thinks that a renter takes care of their property the same as an owner, they are sadly mistaken. And that property will not stay nice for very long. And that's it.
Any additional questions or comments? Okay.
Hi, I'm Meredith Blazing, BLASING, and I live at 201 North Orangewick Drive. For 54 years, I lived in Westerville, Ohio. My husband and I decided we wanted to find a little oasis. And so we stumbled across Orangewick Drive. And that's where we decided to move. I had been in Westerville my whole life. And I'm not against progress at all. When we bought the house, we're like, that field's going to be something, right? But we just want it to be something that keeps the quaintness of the area. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Orangewick. Take a little cruise down there. Walk your dog down there. It's quaint. My in-laws were up from Florida, and they totally fell in love with it. And I just want to kind of keep that feel. And I just feel it's just going to be just a constant traffic loop. So, but thanks for hearing me.
Patricia Barbie, B-A-R-B to be. I live at 245 Orangewick Drive North. I am an original homeowner. 47 years I have been there. My neighbor Don has been across the street from me for 47 years. We live where, at the end of Orangewood Drive North, at the, not on 23 end, but the other end. Relative way, we'll go right past the end of our street. My property would definitely be affected by the new property being built. I have an acre and a half on the end. I keep it pristine. I would appreciate it if we did have nice trees for the borderline. That would be nice. I am concerned about the traffic. The lady ahead of me, yes. Everybody's going to cut through Orangewood Drive North because they can get to 23 easy. They're already cutting through, and it's going to be even worse because they don't want to go to the light. Why do I go to the light when I can go here and go north? I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close public comments now and turn back to the applicant to address the comments.
Don, I would like you to address Shanahan Road, the traffic. I don't need a traffic study to tell me what a nightmare this is going to be.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. So what's going to happen with Shanahan Road, and I think you're going to have a presentation a little bit later by the Assistant County Engineer, is the plans call for in the engineering language, a 3-lane section. So what's that mean to us, a person that, like myself, that's not an engineer? It means that the road's going to be widened, okay? And it's going to have a center turn lane. There are improvements today that the county engineer has done, as we all know, at the intersection of Hyatt's/Shanahan. And I think that light has greatly improved the situation. And then we are very empathetic and understand that this road will redirect traffic in certain ways. But I think you have to zoom out just a little bit and see what it does for the entire community, okay? Number one, to your question, we're going to pay down. We are working with the county engineer on a plan to widen. The county engineer is out ahead of this. We're not the catalyst up for this. The community is. But we are going to contribute significantly monetarily to that. We will have to, we will be putting dollars in as part of the development agreement for our final engineering approval. We will be paying for a portion of the widening of Shanahan Road. Okay? The other thing, the comments are all very good. The bus traffic. We've worked with the school district. There's two things that will happen along Shanahan Road, both traffic and both sewer and water. Shanahan Middle School flows to the east now. There is the opportunity for Shanahan to come into the system that we're extending to. That will be a benefit of the school system. The roads will be improved by this. And, one of the comments was, I can only go in and turn left or south to get my child to school. Right? Well, now there will be a series of different options. And there's always good and bad with different options, but one of the options is you will be able to, the surrounding community will be able to access Rail Timber Way and go north. So that's another option. That does help with traffic in certain ways. It's not a panacea, but it is an improvement. And I'm gonna do it on, did I answer your question? But there is a specific plan.
Rob might be able to talk.
Yeah, and I spoke with Rob about the timing. We're working with him, but I don't want to, we don't like the county engineer speaking on our behalf, so I made an agreement with him that I won't speak on his behalf. But we've been working together with the county to bring forward that road widening, which will benefit the area. There was a question about how traffic will flow. There's a question that there's no right-in, there's no traffic accessible, that traffic does not access this development from Route 33. That's a misunderstanding. For Part A, there is a right-in, right-out off 23. So that traffic will come in off of 23 at that point. So that was a misunderstanding we want to clarify.
Yeah, please do, man, a little bit.
So, does everybody see that? Do you want me to, I'll point it out.
Yeah, he's got it right here.
Okay, all right.
Zoomed in.
Okay, so there will be there are two right-ins that will serve the development, okay? That will not come off of Rail Timber Way. There is a right-in, right-out directly off of 23 at Part A. Then if we go north, thanks, Jeff, are you doing this? Yes. Thanks, if you go, there's a traffic signal there at Hyatt's and Shanahan and 23.
Sir, could you, can we keep the background? We're trying to, we have the audio recording, and I just want to make sure that it's clear for record and that the recorder has an opportunity here.
So as you go north on 23, you take a right headed east on Shanahan. There's what's shown on the drawing is right in, right out. It's going to be right in only. So the first speaker raised the question of, and again, these drawings are not easy to read all the time, and there's a lot of information on it. But to clarify for the record and for the development plan, there are two right-ins that will access the northern part and the southern part that are not off of Rail Timber Way. That will help balance the traffic, okay, in and out. We will be required to build this road, to front the cost for it in some fashion, and that's a benefit to the community. And we're building more road than we should otherwise be required to, because the developer of the condo, which is it's a great community, we're not criticizing the community, didn't build the road to where they should have, in our opinion. Okay? So for traffic, we're gonna build a road that will help serve the area, and there'll be two right-in, right-outs that won't come off Rail Timber. Okay? The note I had here to say with Shanahan Road, our understanding is to be widened to a 3-lane section. That's a center turn lane and 2 widenings. We talked about that. The question of the school system capacity came up. Okay? I want to give you the numbers. You want to double check me because I was doing this on my test. So what Olentangy school system will tell you, it's plus or minus $11,000 a year to educate a student. So in order to get $11,000, we talked about this earlier, you have to have $14,500 in property taxes per student to generate $11,000. We will have in the neighborhood of 39 students total, based upon our experience. That is a 0.15 students per unit on the north and less students on the south. That would be 39 students. The Wilcox communities is much more of an empty nester, and they will have less students. But we're going to use numbers that the school system uses, not our numbers. If you look at 0.15 students over 400 units, that is 60 students. 60 students times 14,500 per student is a burden of $870,000 in property taxes. That's the break-even analysis for the school system, and that's their metrics, not our metrics. We will pay in excess of $2 million a year in property taxes. If you take $2 million so if we have 60 students times 14,500, that's $870,000. So using the school system's revenue model, 60 students times 14,500 is $1,130,000. Okay? Or 60 times 14,500 is $870,000. I'm sorry. So we have $870,000 is the expense to educate our students. We'll provide $2 million in property taxes, which is a surplus of $1,130,000. That is 78 students that aren't here will be educated by the property taxes here. So then there was a question about the insurance policy on the sewer. That's, I think, a misunderstanding of it. We are not, okay, the point was this, we are not required to run these extra lines. We are taking the stormwater. We're required by law to take the stormwater runoff. We are not required by law to invest in an additional sewer line to provide access. So that's just a point of clarification. The other question I had was construction period. It'll be 18 to 24 months. And then lastly, the rents. It was asked, so I think one of the speakers asked what type of renters, he asked what the rents are. Okay, so this would be the range. Single bedrooms in our community will be $1,300, start out at $1,300. The average rent will be $1,900 a month, up to $2,700 a month for a 3-bedroom. These are very high-end communities with a lot of garages. Both Wilcox Communities and Shotzi Real Estate Group are building, we're investing at the high end of the market to attract high-end rents and high-end renters. I think that's all the questions that I had.
What about the price of the condo? Price of the condos?
1 second, I'll answer your question.
Price of the condo?
I will. I just wanted to make, did I miss anything on the other points? I'm not sure I understand your question on price of the condo.
Well, you said the price of the apartments. What about the price of the condos?
All 400 units are for rent. They're not
all rentals.
Yes, they are.
Nobody's buying them.
So,
I wanted to ask a question to Mr. Jones. I believe you provided some pictures here.
Yes.
Are these?
Yeah, so the newer ones are Grove City Summit, and the older ones are Woodside Place, both Shanahan properties.
Shanahan property or Shotzi?
Shotzi, sorry, Shotzi.
What's that?
And longer.
It's on
your website.
For the road improvements, what kind of timeline are you looking at?
Are you talking about Shanahan or are you talking about Rail Timber?
Just Rail Timber.
I think what you're going to hear is that the design would be next year and that there will be a few years after that. I'd rather have Rob tell you. I think it may be 3 to 4 years for Rail Timber. But
So you would have occupancy before you do the roads?
I thought in the application you had committed to complete Rail Timber Drive prior to the first occupancy.
we have. We will have Rail Timber Drive completed. I was addressing Shanahan Road. Okay, the widening. Yes. So the first thing that'll happen is Rail Timber Road will be completed from start to finish. And that will be completed before any building is completed or open. I'm sorry, I misunderstood the question. Yeah.
Any other questions? Sorry, you can answer from there. I hate to wheel it around.
I'm used to this.
Is there, from a traffic standpoint, what consideration or what work, can you elaborate a bit on that as far as total volume and the comment about 23 over capacity was spot on and fair. It's been in multiple reports. So obviously with this community of this magnitude, have to imagine there was some effort that went into that with whether, regional planning or the engineer's office.
So one of the reasons for the preliminary traffic study that we have, that all the service levels are maintained. In other words, the intersection at Hyatt's Road and Shanahan is not degraded. And part of that reason is because you're distributing traffic both north and south around Lexington. So the service levels are not degraded, and there's a better distribution of traffic, which is one of the issues with 23.
And then on the school topic, I've researched that thoroughly, and there's a large study that came out, and the range by complex in the school district, there's some disparity there, but it's typically under less than single family homes. Almost there's 1 or 2 outliers out of 100 plus communities, I think it was. So I validated that last year when I started that is accurate when they speak to that.
Okay, thank you. The school actually comes out ahead on property taxes on apartment buildings.
If the economic development tools are appropriate. And in this case, I'm not aware of any TIFs or anything like that associated with this property. But tax, it's a type of financing that's used that property taxes that would otherwise go to the school go towards the county for infrastructure that benefits the school. It's pulled together and then they use that for roads and things like that. It's a way for them to generate revenue to fix roads faster. So at times that can put pressure on the school as well as the students come before they get that financing method completed. And I think in the past we've had quite a few of those that may have hit a little harder. In this case, they're not doing it. So all of that money, all those monies will go to the school and benefit them in this particular application. It's not always the case. That's an important thing that staff to understand as well. Okay?
Thank you so much.
Just one question there. Can
You'll have to come up and state your name. I apologize. I've closed public comments, but I'll allow you to ask your question.
But I was just trying to ask
okay, yes.
So I'm Sunil Nandimandalam, NAN.
Can you spell your last name?
Yeah, NANDHIMANDALAM.
Okay.
And I stay at 754 Edward Lane. So they were talking about school. So we have 3 schools, the elementary, middle and high school, all 3 together. And for 400 families, maybe the average might be 1.560, but being a school nearby the place, and most of the renters would be people who go to school because it's very nearby and easy commutable. And I would say you will see more than an average staying there in that area who will go to school. And I don't know, will it actually adds more revenue to the school or adds more burden to the school based on how much money they're putting in the school district. And also people mention to extend the rail timber way, so it will also, people can cut off that road to Lewis Center also. It's not only the 23rd and the Shannon Road. People coming to the Kroger, people come to school, and also people can go to Lewis Center. The rail timber way connects to the Lewis Center also.
Okay.
So it adds more traffic, especially for the people staying nearby, right? Rail timber will become one more, maybe not like 23, but it will be a nightmare for the traffic.
Okay, thank you. So I'm less concerned personally with it from that regard, simply because that access exists today.
But it stops at our
I'm very
convenient.
Yeah, I understand. But as far as diverting around to Lewis Center Road behind Kroger,
but everyone looks for a shortcut, right? Even they have multiple ways.
Yeah.
People might look for a shorter road.
They may go down rail timber from the community to Lewis Center through and behind Kroger. But again, to his point, I think that increases the opportunity to avoid 23, which is
23 is always overcrowded, right? So anyways,
it's just going to change the traffic pattern. That's the point. Yeah. I'm not going to take any more a closed public comment. If you have a question based on what he said, feel free to state your name and you can ask him quickly.
My name's Dan Marinoff. I live at 749 Redwood Lane, which is right here. And in our community alone, there is nearly 100 students that attend the schools. 100 yard trails.
And we've got 150 units, is that correct?
152 units, correct. And so I'm proposing 39 students out of this.
60.
60
out of both parts.
Yeah, 60 out of both parts, 400 units.
No way.
We have 152 units, almost 100 students.
156.
Okay. We'll let him respond. Okay.
So I take your question is, I would just like clear for the record, we're not proposing that to be 60 students out of this high-end rental community. Those are the metrics, the figures used by the ONTNG local school system. We're just using their figures. What we said is that our experience will be something less. And then I think the difference is they have a metric for condominium locations, and they have a metric or a ratio for rental communities. And so we're just reciting the school district's historical experience, and also what they use is their planning model. And I think that they will tell you that the planning model is not a year or two in the making. It's their experience, and it's been proven out over decades.
So I'm gonna, once again, the public comments are closed, so I did want to let you ask your question, please. So it's based on the schools, okay? So I have the study that's mentioned, and I'll work with our team here to put it either online or find a way to allow residents to see that study, because I know there's a lot of questions, and I can validate what was said. There's a difference between every type of home in the community, in the school district as a whole. It's not just the township here. It does take into account every township, and so when you see that range that I mentioned, some of them that are on the high end or on the lower end will make sense to you when you look at the proximity and where they are. So once I put that out, you can look at that and make sense of what you will from it. Some of the condominiums, are closer to single-family home metrics, and some are not because there's age restrictions on who can live there. For example, 55 and up communities. So it just depends on the type and style and certain stipulations and details. So I'm happy to provide that to anyone that's interested. It's a very thorough, long document.
I have one question for Don. Now the initial proposal has 250 apartments for
Hang on, sir. If everything has to be on the record, so if you're going to ask a question about his comment, then that's fine. This will be the last public comment. Yeah, go ahead. Come. She just needs to get your name again for the record.
My name is Muhammad Alauddin, and my question is to Don. Like initially when the proposal was there, it had like 250 apartments and 150.
Slow down.
Oh. The initial proposal had 250 apartments on the north and 150 condos on the south by Wilcox. But what I heard just now is 400 apartment units.
So I think that you're confused on the style of the property, a townhome type model. Okay. So even though some folks call them condos, the style or architecture is such where it's often referred to as a townhome, whereas to the north is more of what you might typically see in an apartment. And there's a community that I know you all also sold to, I believe it was Champion. Is that correct? Off of South Old State, the name of that property?
That's Polaris Summit.
Polaris Summit. So it's Polaris Grand or Grand. But I did some research too in this area, and that was one I didn't know. It's not a Schottenstein property anymore. It's owned by Champion. And I checked in on their rent prices, and so from a market perspective, since it's in the town, close to the township, I believe that area got annexed, if I'm not mistaken, but they were upwards of $2,000 a month for those, and that would be one that you could look at when you get that school report to get a good baseline on, what to expect. I don't know when that property was built, but it's not a couple years, at least 4, 5, 6 years.
3 to 5 years. Between 3 to 5 years, somewhere in that time.
Yep. So
Sold Town and Old State, is that what we're talking about?
close to that, yes. They expanded the road, the county. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, thank you for that. The next question is related to
But that's also in the plans for Shanahan Road.
The next question is related to the traffic spread. Don said this will help the traffic spread around. I see all the exit points on Rail Timberway. I see one on 23, but that's just coming from the Wilcox. Right, there's nothing coming from the other apartment. Why are these not connected internally? That will reduce the traffic.
I can't understand you, sir. I'm sorry.
So there is the exit here on 23. I know the rule does not allow an exit around here because it's a highway. All of these exits are going to increase traffic on these two units are not connected. If these are connected, I'm sure that will reduce the traffic. Why are they not connected?
To 23.
No,
Oh, I see. Okay, I understand. To the two neighborhoods.
Yeah, just connect these two. That way at least, if it's not 100% way, at least 20%.
Yeah.
So I think the question is, I'm not sure I heard it correctly.
The two different, so the townhomes and the apartments, so the southern property A and B to the north aren't connected.
Correct.
And so the point, I think the pointer question is why, and that would that not help ease the burden on rail timber with people cutting through? Or
Let me deal with the rail timber. There will be a right-in, there's two right-ins and there's one right out. But in terms of connecting the two communities, they're two different style communities. They're compatible, and we would like to not have a roadway connection between the two. The roadway connection is rail timber.
Yeah. So one thing too with Shanahan is there's challenges there that are unique in the fact that it's multiple entities that are responsible for that road. And so it requires a little extra work. So I know that's part of the time constraint with development there, is it requires two different townships and the county partnership as well. And we have Mr. Rob Riley here from the county engineer. Are you comfortable sharing any comments since it's a topic right now, sir? You knew it was coming, right? Smile.
All right, well, good evening. My name is Rob Riley, Chief Deputy Engineer with the County Engineer's Office. I'll address the question regarding Shanahan Road. Mr. Grumbles, you're absolutely correct. Any improvement of Shanahan Road would be a joint effort. It would involve both Berlin and Orange Townships and very likely the Delaware County Board of Commissioners as well as the county engineer. And so we have not yet had those discussions in detail with your board or Berlin Township. I think certainly the right time to do that is very near, if not already. But I think I'll state just at a very high level, we have we review traffic studies as a routine matter. We have looked at the preliminary, at least the assumptions that are being made for this traffic study. Some things to keep in mind, not all of the traffic that would be generated by this development will get onto Shanahan Road. Typically in this area, there's a southward bias for traffic. The majority of traffic does go to and from the south, and so it's very likely that the majority of the traffic from this neighborhood would use rail timber going to the south and either access via the one of the two traffic signals to the south. Orangewick Drive, that's a question we could certainly talk about. I understand there's some resident concerns about the cut-through traffic on Orangewick Drive. There are some potential solutions to that. Each of those solutions would involve some downside as well. So potentially putting in traffic calming devices, potentially closing the access at 23. Those are all options that can be discussed. I'm not here to pretend that there's time to talk about that tonight, but that's something we're certainly willing to talk with you, because that is your township road, being a public road, and we, as your engineer, are more than happy to try to help out with that.
Is there any legal stipulation related to closing the rail timber access to Orangewick on the west side?
So the issue, as far as a legal standpoint, I'm not sure there is a legal standpoint to that issue. I think there is a practical standpoint to that issue, being that the residents that live along Orangewick Drive need to have reliable and safe access to Route 23. The reality is, with the traffic levels on Route 23, the current access at Orangewick Drive, I think it's questionable whether that's desirable to keep open as it stands. But again, that's a discussion we can have. We're not going to arrive at any decision points tonight, I'm sure.
Yeah, I actually was going to buy a home there when we moved here, and the reason we didn't was that exact situation on 23. We couldn't figure out how to get out when we looked at the house, so it's tough. But I think, whatever we could do. I'm very familiar with that neighborhood. Spent a lot of time there, and have some close friends that live there, and it is special. I remember knocking on your door Ms. Barbie a couple years ago, and you have I believe, a red brick home. Is that correct? Or towards the end of Orangewick, or is that you?
Yeah, she lives on red brick, we live in red brick.
Okay, I just remember you specifically because you came to the door and didn't have a clue who I was, and you had your storm door. But I do remember you, so I understand the serenity there and how quiet it is, and to your point. So,
When we came there, it was no Orangewood, no high school, no Kroger, no nothing.
a little different. Changed a lot.
And a field, so you can understand where we come from.
Okay. Okay. Well, the reason I know about Shanahan Road, we haven't talked about as a board, but have had some meetings with the engineer's office about the township, private, and that's one of the areas that we've discussed. So it is on the radar, and we'll take collaboration, which we're willing to do, but we understand it's a concern. Thank you. Thank you.
Since we have you, just obviously traffic is a big concern. Can you just real quick speak to the 23 ODOT study right now that's being done? That the corridor as a whole, and obviously the concern, this isn't just an Orange Delaware County thing. There's multiple partners looking at this.
Yeah, so I think that's a good observation. The county and ODOT, as well as our partners in Orange Township, Liberty Township, are participating in a study of Route 23. That study actually goes all the way up to Waldo. Currently, the issue, not surprisingly, with Route 23, it's running at capacity during the peak travel hours. If you go in the afternoon, it's actually over capacity towards the south end of Route 23. Very difficult for freight to get through on Route 23. Very difficult to get through if you're just a commuter trying to get to and from Franklin County. And so some of the issues that we can address at a local level between the county and the townships. We have made a concerted effort to try to create parallel roads, Rail Timber Way being one of those. Green Meadows Drive being another one of those, ultimately connecting up through. We just finished the project about 2 weeks ago at the new elementary school on on Peach Blow Road. Those projects are really intended to help relieve some of the traffic on Route 23 by keeping local trips on the local road network. Instead of you as a resident on Shanahan Road, going out to 23, hanging a left, making a left into Kroger, there's an effort to make sure that local trip, which is destined from your home to another local business, stays on the local road network. Keeping the regional trips on 23, keeping the local trips on local road. And so at a high level, that's something we can do as a local township or local partners. There's a lot that's out of our hands. ODOT is ultimately responsible for US 23 maintenance, and so we will certainly continue working with them, doing what we can. But whatever happens Route 23, it's going to have, we're talking big dollars. I mean, hundreds of millions of dollars to make improvements on Route 23 if it comes to that. And so we continue to do what we can on these local roads.
Thank you.
Wouldn't high density properties kind of negate the work that you're doing?
No, I think what he's saying is that these parallel roads are a function. The funding and the construction of those is a byproduct of the development that's there, of coming in, right? So as we do development for commercial period along the corridor, we're going to look for parallel connectivity where you see Green Meadows coming through Lewis Center going north all the way up, things like that.
Oh, not, my understanding is we're trying to avoid high density properties. So you open that up, maybe just add 4 properties and you start saying issue on that. Right?
That's the point, is that the families are on those roads and that the business traffic and the commuter traffic is on 23. To build infrastructure within local roads so that the regional and highway type are limited to that type of traffic. Thank you. Any other board comments or questions?
Didn't we address the sidewalk deal with the school?
You're right, we didn't talk about that. Was a question. I,
No, I can answer that.
okay, thank you, Jeff.
It'll be this little property here, kind of like a little triangle. This is actually zone planned commercial. As part of the overall Northampton Crossing development. And that was stipulated in there when that got developed, the developer would put the trail in. So that's why there's no connectivity, because north of that is the Northampton Crossing community, and they put the trail in on the south. I believe either the township put it in or the school put it in south of the property. But since it's not been developed, there's no way to put the trail in.
So there's a gap.
But the walkway goes all the way from behind the stadium, all the way up to the school, and our condo developed it all the way down to there, and so there's 200 feet in use.
He's explaining here, it's hard to see from there, there's a little triangular property that's privately owned, that's a commercial property. So,
Schools, behind the stadium?
yes.
Not school property.
So no one can infringe upon that and build on someone else's property. So everyone that's done their part to connect it legally that can, or should. So until we solve for that expanse, which we can find the owner and reach out to them and ask or what have you, but that's really the effort that you brought forth. That's what the effort would entail.
In a practical sense, there's kids riding bikes, there's adults walking their dogs in the street on a knoll.
So we have an attorney here. I'm going to turn over and ask him if there's anything we could do as a township to.
No, until it's developed, there's nothing you can do. You can reach out. You can reach out to the property,
right?
Ask, but it's just an ask.
Okay.
There's no legal authority to bind something.
So we'll do that. We'll ask. Can't hurt, right? It's an effort. And then just.
Discuss one more thing. We did not discuss the south side fencing between the new development and the existing house.
We can't understand you again. I'm sorry, sir.
We did not discuss the south side fencing or the screening, whatever. You mentioned that we put 6 trees in 100 feet, but that's not really addressing our, there's no kids running to our farm.
So the fencing.
Yeah.
There's a fencing.
Exactly, yep.
Okay.
Some kind of,
if it's on here on that I took notes on, which fencing was, I'll allow them to answer it.
Yeah, you said 6 trees every 100 feet. That's 6.
not addressing the safety of life. Thank you.
Okay, so I heard 2 questions. One is 6 trees every 100 feet. They will grow together, and you in order to have, you don't want to plant trees that are too big, they won't live. These are very large trees to begin with, and you have to evaluate the screen on 3 things. One, there are a number of trees in the existing properties on their south border. Then we're preserving 10 feet of vegetation and trees on our property, and then we're planting the screen. And then the notes on our plan, what we've talked with the staff is we do have an option at the owner of Part B to install a privacy fence at a future date.
Yeah, so you're asking for the privacy fence.
I'm asking what is their plan for the privacy of the existing community and the apartment.
Okay, so the question is the privacy between the southern property line of the Shanahan homes and the northern property line of Part B. There are 3 elements to there are actually 4 elements to the privacy. On the current some of the current property owners have heavy trees on their southern property line. When you step into our property line from the north moving south, we have a 50-foot setback. Number 1, there's a 50-foot setback for building and parking. Within that 50-foot setback, we will maintain 10 feet of the current vegetation and trees. Then once you move further in, we will plant the evergreen trees. And then you have the balance of the 50 feet. Then we have a note on the plan that says we would have the option to install a privacy fence at a future date.
Okay. And I think you're asking if they would just install it, right? Yeah. And the answer is no.
No.
we will take care of the issues.
Visual privacy, but no walk through privacy.
Yeah.
All right. So from it, go ahead.
Now, so, you can bring it back to the board now for discussion among the board. If you feel you have everything you need, you can close the hearing, render your decision tonight, or the code allows you to render your decision in 20 days to conclusion of the hearing. Either option.
Okay. Barb, Trustee Taranto, do you know how you feel about how you're going to vote now? Would you like more time? Would you want to?
Well, it's my understanding because of the overlay, we don't have much options. Everything is set, they've met all of the requirements. So I don't really have a choice, is how I understand it.
What? That's how I understand it.
Hang on. Just keep it, we're still in the hearing here. The comments I made earlier about the overlay and the zoning process, I made for a reason, and Trustee Taranto is accurate in that regard. What Mr. Griggs said, who is our attorney for zoning matters, is that the board has three options. We can vote tonight to approve and move forward. We can close the hearing and render a vote later, within 30 days by law. Or we can...
Or if there's additional evidence that you think you need, you could continue it.
We can continue it, okay? So that's really it. They've met the basic requirements of the application. There's the divergences are for signs and things of that nature that would make it very non-realistic to opine based on the size of a sign. We could do it, and it would create more expense and liability and not amount to anything. That's my personal opinion.
My frustration level is Shanahan Road. That's my biggest frustration.
So is ours.
Yeah.
Yeah, as it should be. They're giving nothing in concessions to us. This is ridiculous. They just widened it and it's still. I mean, and if they win first, they win, we lose. It's really no matter what. So,
Trustee Rivers, you're fine moving forward. Trustee Taranto? Okay. I'm going to close the hearing now, and we'll vote accordingly. Make a motion to approve Resolution 21-267, approval of a development plan for RCOD Section 20.04G of the Orange Township Zoning Resolution, Orange Summit Communities.
Second.
Mr. Grumbles?
Yes.
Ms. Taranto? Yes. Mr. Rivers?
Right? All right, make a motion for a 5-minute recess.
enjoy the money they gave you.
Do I have a second?
Mr. Grumbles?
Yes.
Ms. Taranto? Mr. Rivers?
All right, 5-minute recess. Back to order here in just a moment, so if you would get settled in.
Sorry, I'm freezing. It's time to fix the air conditioner.
All right, call this meeting back to order. We're going to continue by opening our last hearing today for zoning application RCOD 21-03 Caliber Collision.
Yes, this is an application for a collision repair center. It is at the northwest corner of US 23 and Parkway Drive, and it is within the commercial sub-area of the RCOD. They are meeting most of the requirements. They are asking for 6 divergences. I do want to point out that they are asking for a divergence from the maximum setback along both US 23 and Parkway. They do have some arguments regarding that, regarding the angle of the road and along US 23. That is in your packet, but I did want to point that out. They are also asking for screening, divergence from the parking lot screening, again, due to the limited area to put that screening, the way the roads are laid out. And then they are asking for a divergence from the minimum setback of the sign from their entrance. They needed to move their entrance back further from US 23. So that required the sign to move with that entrance if you read the regulations strictly. But it makes more sense to have that sign out towards the US 23 frontage. So we're supportive of that divergence as well. The other thing I want to briefly mention before I turn it over to the applicant is that there's been conversations about the traffic study for this. There's been an MOU that was prepared, but the county engineer's office reviewed that. They said that this actually, in their opinion, would be under the 100 peak hour AM, PM peak hour trips per day, and so that they would only require a site access review for this. So at this point in time, from the Delaware County engineer's perspective, it would only require that level of analysis and not a full-blown traffic study. So just wanted to make everybody aware of that. And with that, I will turn it over to the applicant to provide a more in-depth presentation.
Good evening. Nick Poor with Cross Development, 9461 Kenwood Road. I'll try to make it quick for you guys after that last one. As Holly mentioned, we're proposing a 16,100 square foot caliber collision building on 2.1 acres at the northwest corner of US 23 and Parkway Drive. We are currently located in the commercial portion of the RCOD, which, from my understanding, an auto repair is an allowed use within the RCOD. Just to give you guys a little bit more insight on Caliber Collision, if you're not familiar with them, they are the largest auto repair facility in the country. There's 1,000 stores across the country. I would consider it to be more of an upscale auto repair facility. All of the work is done inside the building with the doors down at all times. The hours of operation are typically Monday through Friday, around 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Number of employees for this size store, we're looking at probably 15 to 20 employees. And then as far as deliveries on a daily basis, most of the cars are being driven in. They're minor repair that's being completed. So most of the cars that come into the site each day are driving. There are some deliveries, but all in all, about 3 to 5 deliveries a day. And then also, we've worked very closely with Holly and the Township on meeting all the requirements. I feel that we've met most of them. There were a couple issues that we ran into. For example, we tried to move that building as close as we could within the 75-foot setback, but the fire department is requesting 2 access points, so we also had to move the access point 300 feet from the US 23 and Parkway intersection of the site plan up there, but we were able to pull most of the building within that 75-foot setback. Some other things that we've done is added, additional landscaping. We've added additional screening. I believe it's a wood privacy fence that will go around the storage yard. We've also added a 30-foot easement connecting our site to the parcel to the north of us to give them access. And then also, as you see on the site plan there's a multi-use trail that wraps around the site that we'll be providing as well. And then there in the middle, I believe, is going to provide connectivity to the south. Just making sure I'm not missing anything. We have been in contact with the owner to the north. I've talked to him throughout the project. We did agree to provide them access. It did end up being a county requirement, but that's something we had said we work with him on up front. From my understanding, the property to the south is in support of the project. Pan Group could not be here this evening, but I know their broker, Jeff Cutler's in attendance, so he can speak for them if need be. And then parcel directly to the west, I was unable to get in contact with them. I did go knock on their door twice. As you mentioned earlier, I know that's not a requirement, but we did want to try to put forth the effort to reach out to everybody we could. So at this time, we'll open it up to any questions you guys might have.
Do you have a map that zones out further so you can kind of see where this is in a larger scope? Makes sense what I'm looking for. Surrounding area, buildings, something like that.
If you can't find it, I can tell you where that neighborhood, and there's a neighborhood to the right. Let's almost like up against that, sort of the right. The Parkway being the access code is 23, and then West Palm,
there we go.
The access code for
Yep, tracking. We close that out if it's the property photo. Okay. So just north of the Orange Road intersection there. Yep.
Just north of the
Yeah, I know exactly. It's the next left turn right there. Okay. In the document I have, there's an entrance that's quite a bit different than the one you just pulled up the road. The easternmost entrance exit is substantially different than the design on the board. You know which one it is?
That was the original plan and then the updated plan.
With the fire kind of, okay.
Yeah, I've got the latest if anybody needs to see it, but yeah, we did move the drive 300 feet from the intersection there.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the board?
What are the locations do you have? What's the closest one from Orange?
Yeah, so they're all throughout the country, but we do actually have 3 that are under construction currently in the Columbus market. So this would be the 4th. The one that's probably closest to being opened is in Dublin, 5600 Innovation Drive. And we also have one going in Columbus and then Railsburg as well.
You said you got 15 to 20 employees?
15 to 20 employees, 3 to 5 deliveries a day.
Jeff, could you explain the lighting divergence to me? Talks about it's next to existing single-family zoning district, but because it's in the cloud, it could become an industrial, commercial. But yet it's currently single-family. So I guess I don't understand why we would allow that divergence.
Currently it's zoned farm residential, the property just north, it's farm residential. In both the comprehensive land use plan that was adopted and the Route 103 overlay district that's zoned for planning commercial, future plan commercial. So the intent was that would most likely be developed. That's why they're also looking at that easement, because the county wants to extend Pacer Drive down to Walkway, and then that would help with the access to create that to be commercial.
So you don't expect that to remain single-family?
I don't believe there's an existing structure on it right now. So
Right now it's a vacant. Two properties that are owned by the same individual here.
And you say it's not a real loud?
No, we've had to perform sound studies in the past, I think in some of our Florida sites, but yeah, they found that the traffic on 23, or in this case, the traffic on 23 will be much, much louder than anything coming out of that building.
And it's maintained, looks nice, professional.
Yeah, I mean, I would consider definitely a more upscale auto repair shop. Yeah, everything's done with inside closed doors.
As far as the storage you mentioned, can you talk about, I looked at the configuration and some of the setback requests and was trying to make sense of why there wasn't, a shift in the building, and I imagined it had to do with that storage and keeping that in a specific spot type thing. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I think that was a little bit to do with it. So as far as the storage, from my understanding, it's anywhere around probably 3 to 4 days that cars could be stored out there. It could vary a little bit, but as I stated before, it's all minor damage, so it looks more of like a parking lot versus a junkyard, in my opinion. But as far as meeting that front setback requirement, again, from my understanding, the fire department's requirement was to have 2 access points, so we kept, the flow through the front and then turn it around to the rear, and that was driving, I think, most of where that building ended up at. And then as far as not meeting that setback to the south along Parkway, yeah, that's all driven because of the customer parking. We've got to have the customer parking on the south of the building there for the customers to enter the office on the southeast corner of the building there.
So the rest of the property is essentially employee and work in process.
That's right. And those gates are open during business or hours of operation at all times. There's a gate to the north where the storage yard begins on the northeast side of the building, and then down at that west entrance point, there's also a gate.
Can you pull up what that? I see the fencing outline, but I think it'd be important just to show what that 3D rendering looks like, or whatever it's called, the artistic graph, or I saw it in there, I just didn't get a chance to look at it. There we go. There's a couple down that had, I think, open to see the gates. So that's a fence. Right, but I mean, it integrates with the fence, the point. Versus looking like a, you know, prison yard or something.
Yeah, we've done the pitch roof. That's not prototypical. That's not something we typically do. We've got an upgraded building material architectural panel that wraps the whole building outside of the front that we've also upgraded. And then stone veneer on the bottom quarter of the building wrapping all the way around. So a lot of things that are outside of our prototypical building that we've also complied with.
Any other questions?
I do not.
Okay.
Thank you.
Public comments? Sir, please state your name and spell it for the board.
My name is Spencer Hagel, Hagel, 330 South Parkway Drive. I did have a few points to bring up. I think some of them have kind of already been addressed. I know you mentioned the prison fence. When I think of repair, I think of chain link fences with barbed wire at the top of it. No desire to have that any close to where I live. But I think if it's a solid fence, it's a lot less offensive. But the other point I had was traffic. I know we said it's probably not a huge issue, but when you GPS how to get to that specific lot from anywhere that is to the west of 23, it routes you through our neighborhood. Our neighborhood, as I said, we butt up. We make one corner of 23 and almost Orange Road, and the other two perimeters are North Orange. So whenever you GPS that from anywhere to the west, unless there's something crazy going on because of traffic, it routes you up Orange Road and directly through our neighborhood. I don't have any pictures of our neighborhood, but it's easy to visualize. Our roads aren't very wide. They were designed as rural roads to only let people access that area that live there. They're barely wide. If you park two cars there, you have about 2 inches in between the cars and on the other side. At one point, they did construction, and they routed people through our neighborhood and tore our yards up. One car ended up in my ditch. People just aren't used to those roads because they're not very wide. There are no divisions. There's no paint. There's no striping either down the middle or the sides. There's 1 foot of grass on either side, and then it dips into drainage ditches up to 3 feet. I know at one point there was discussion when they put in North Orange about connecting North Orange through West Orange to our neighborhood to Orange Road, and it was decided then that it wasn't very viable based on the existing infrastructure. So I only ask that the board consider kind of upholding that decision and not making Parkway Drive an entrance into our neighborhoods. Otherwise, we're going to get traffic through there, whether it's tow trucks, deliveries, anything that's coming from the west will go through our neighborhood. And the only other point that I had was just around the lighting. I know nobody wants something bright in their backyard. It's understandable, it's a business, there's going to be some lighting, but the closer everything gets to the neighborhood, the more it kind of encroaches right in your backyard. We're actually a little bit farther away from it, and I can't speak for the residents of the neighborhood, but I can't imagine that they would like lights any closer to their properties than they have to be. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Would you like, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, my name is Paul Hundley, Hundley, at 7412 Coventry Woods Drive in Dublin. I'm the property owner to the north, and I just wanted to state that I'm in support of the development.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want to address any of the comments the resident made?
Sure.
There you
go. As far as the Parkway Drive concern, I would agree. That's a legitimate concern. From my understanding, talking with ODOT, and this was part of the conversation earlier about the area study, that it's ultimately planned for that Parkway Drive to be cut off. Not sure what the timing is on that, but I know that is in the talks. I don't know that that'll ever happen, but I believe that is part of the study. As far as the concern on the lighting, you might be able to speak a little bit more to it, but we've done the photometric plan to address those concerns, so I don't think there should be any lighting crossing too far over the property lines that would interfere with any residents to the west there.
The variance is only along that north property line. The
Yes.
other property lines comply with the regulations.
Okay, great. And I would assume that if there are concerns that surface after, you're going to be a good neighbor and you seem like you'd be responsive enough to take those into consideration.
Absolutely.
We're probably hypersensitive to that because we had a situation with the car wash and the blowers.
Oh, yeah.
Made it very miserable for the condos across the street.
Yep. Understand.
Any other board comments or concerns?
No.
No. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Trustee Taranto, are you ready to render a decision on this application? Trustee Rivers? Make a motion to approve resolution 21-268, approval of a development plan per the RCOD section 20.04G of the Orange Township zoning resolution, Caliber collision. Second.
Mr. Grumbles?
Yes.
Ms. Taranto?
Yes.
Mr. Rivers?
Yes. All right, this concludes all of our zoning hearings today, and we will now invite our county engineer, start our regular meeting, and allow our county engineer to come up 2 hours after schedule.
All right.
You're done. Yes, thank you. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you.
It's only like $30.
Like all kinds of kind of stuff happening in there, and it weird. Helicopter planes were working from the woods over the man, the salting over the speaker video.
Son did those too.
All right, welcome.
Okay, well, good evening again. My name is Rob Riley, Chief Deputy Engineer with the County Engineer's Office. Happy to be with you tonight. Always pleased to represent the County Engineer's Office and Chris Bosman, County Engineer. I'm sure you know Doug Riedel. Doug is our Township Engineer. Doug does a terrific job of representing our office and coordinating issues with the 18 townships in the county. He is our point man for kind of the routine and even the non-routine items that townships might need our help with, or vice versa when we have information we wish to share with townships. Doug handles that and handles it very well. So Silas and Doug work together closely already, and we'd like to keep that momentum going. So next slide, please. So I'm going to run very, very quickly through the current projects we are developing and have planned. I'll do my very best to keep this to about 20 or 25 minutes. Happy to answer any questions along the way if I'm going too quickly. Just want to talk on some of our major projects we have under construction. East Powell Road Phase 2. This is an $8 million project. We are very nearly complete with that project. We expect final work to be completed in September, if not a little bit earlier. Contractor has done a really nice job getting the work done on schedule, keeping to the closure limits. That work will include the 3-lane section. There's still some final paving and roadside work to be done. So if you're looking at that right now, it looks kind of unfinished. That's because it is still some paving work to do, and that should clean up nicely and look like the section east of I-71 that was completed last fall. Slide. Orange Road Phase 2, this is your project. We're very happy to be managing on your behalf. I spoke with the construction engineer earlier today. He does anticipate all of the work to be completed by the end of this month. The good news is that project is more or less on schedule and under budget. And so we have non-performed some of the contract work including one of the traffic signals that was originally planned. That work is not being performed. And the other good news is we have not had any significant overruns in some of the other things we tend to expect on projects like this. And so we do anticipate that total project cost to come in around $3.2 million. I believe the contract amount was $3.5 million. It may actually be a little less than $3.2 million. You're aware you have a nearly $500,000 grant through the High Public Works Commission helping pay for that project as well. So, again, you'll see that completion hopefully within the next 2 weeks if we can get a few days where it doesn't rain and we can get the final course of asphalt on. Slide. Worthington Road. This is basically on the Genoa-Orange Township line, $6 million project. We're working on expanding that intersection. Will includes 2 lanes in each direction on Worthington Road, as well as some new turn lanes on Africa Road. That project is really going to be going on through about the next year. We don't anticipate finishing that up before July of next year. There's just a tremendous amount of utility work that has to be done for that project, but you'll see we're going all the way through the fall. We will shut that project down for the most part over the winter. We're not going to try to build a road through snow and ice control season, but we'll resume work in the spring next year. Slide. Home Road west of 23, currently under construction. This is a $4 million project. We're widening that section of road to 3 lanes. Currently have that open to one-way westbound traffic. That will be in place through about the end of September, and then we anticipate reopening that to two-way traffic in October. We will shut down for the winter. We have a little bit of roadside work, cleanup work to do when we come back in the spring, and we expect to have everything done by June of next year. Slide. Home Road east of 23. We have a multitude of work still remaining. We've accomplished basically 3 of the phases outlined in our plan from 10 years ago. The section that was just completed last year was about roughly a $9 to $10 million project, working in cooperation with the Slate Ridge developer as well as Schottenstein Real Estate Group to help finance that project. And then we are currently developing plans for phase 4A and 4B. If you can go to the next slide for me. 4A includes the railroad bridge over the CSX and Norfolk Southern railroads. That is tentatively projected to start construction in 2025 with completion in 26. Phase 4B, which will actually go before 4A, will include a roundabout at Lewis Center Road where Home Road will tie in. That is, we are nearing design completion on that, working with the folks at Evans Farm to coordinate with their development and the extension of Home Road into Evans Farm, which will basically be called Pyatt Road once you go north of Lewis Center Road. And so that is planned for construction starting next year. Any questions so far?
So for the Home Road, when you do the roundabout, will the Lewis Center Home Road extension, when you start building that out, because obviously the bridge is the last piece, it's the longest. So that begins
Yes.
22, 23?
Yeah, if you can go back 2 slides for me to the map. Yeah, thank you. So what's shown in red there, that is planned to be part of phase 4B. So there will be about, 500 feet of road that extends south of the roundabout. I believe that's Weatherby Drive tying in to the subdivision to the southeast. That connection is a long-term, that was planned long time ago when Village at Allen Creek was subdivided, and so this project will make that happen.
Railroads don't make extensions easy for them.
That's an understatement. One railroad is bad enough, let alone 2. We've got Norfolk Southern and CSX, and this will end up being a very big bridge. We are including a pedestrian path on the bridge, and so this will tie together the pedestrian networks on both sides of the railroad, which I know is an important thing for Township as well as the county, so we think that'll be pretty important. Next slide is there. Okay, Orange Road Railroad grade separation. I know we have a lot more discussion on this. I don't anticipate to solve anything tonight, but I will tell you where things stand currently. We have, the county has retained an engineering consultant to develop a preliminary study and preliminary plans for this grade separation. I think it's no mystery. This is a big problem. If you go across that grade crossing during the peak hours, even off-peak hours, it can back up quite a bit. We've got a safety issue, we've got a traffic capacity issue, traffic flow issue, problem for emergency services to get across there. And so really the need to construct this is really self-evident. And so basically what our consultant has concluded is the most feasible option would be to build an underpass. This would look very similar to the project that Columbus is developing on Lozelle Road. Their road actually goes under the railroad just as it did 100 years ago. So there would be a bridge carrying the Norfolk Southern Railroad, which is depicted here. Interesting note, when you touch a railroad, keep in mind that is railroad property. We have no jurisdiction over the railroad at county or township level. I'm sure you're aware of this, but we have to work with the railroads and accommodate their desires to a certain extent. One of their requirements is to build make sure the bridge is wide enough for a future track. So even though there's only 2 tracks there for Norfolk Southern, we will need to accommodate 3 on the bridge. Same thing with CSX. There's currently a single track. We would need to accommodate a future second track on that bridge. So there would be basically a bridge for NS, and then right beside it a bridge for CSX if you're looking in the direction of the railroad.
Has there been any money committed from Warmsty?
Yes. So this slide basically summarizes where things stand. We, as I mentioned, are currently in the engineering process. We've spent about $600,000 to date on the preliminary planning and engineering. We are committed to pay for all of the engineering expenses for this project. We are estimating we'll have about $1.5 million of potential land acquisition. We have not gone into great detail on appraisals or detailed estimates, but the footprint of the project will extend beyond the current right-of-way. And we will have to consider basically a temporary road during construction of the underpass. So something we'll certainly share in more detail. Utility relocation, there will be a considerable amount for this project, both overhead lines, buried lines that we'll have to deal with. Most of those, or many of those, are in private easement currently. So. Construction, good news. The Delaware County TID applied last year to MORPC for funding towards this project, was successful in obtaining a $7 million commitment from MORPC. Just so you're aware, MORPC basically gets an allocation of federal highway dollars that flow through ODOT, and then MORPC has a competitive selection process where they allocate that money to Central Ohio projects. So we were successful in getting that commitment. Ohio law actually requires that railroads pay a portion of the project cost in these situations. It's a statutory prescribed percentage of 15%. That may or may not be all cash. The railroads will do a considerable amount of work themselves. As the work is going on in the railroad, they will have flaggers, railroad flaggers. Basically, they're anytime there's being work done on railroad property to warn the contractor, hey, there's going to be a train in 5 minutes, you need to get your equipment off, have everyone clear. That railroad flagger or flaggers is there for the entire duration of the project, and that cost adds up. Our estimated cost of that is about $1 million. So big chunk of the $3 million. By statute, they would be required to pay for this project, but nonetheless, the railroads will have some skin in the game. It is our intention to pursue some additional funding through ODOT's Highway Safety Program. ODOT has a pot of money they make available to local agencies. for safety upgrades on roads. This certainly qualifies for that type of program. There's a very clear safety benefit to having a grade separated crossing versus a non-grade crossing. And then I guess the last two bullets are things we're going to have to discuss. Basically, the Orange Township share. We also, as you know, there is a TIF already on the Orange Road, or some of the Orange Road properties. One of those is currently generating money. I believe another one will be very shortly. So some potential revenues that will be derived in that manner, but obviously we have some more discussion to have ahead of us on how to fund the balance. So I'll stop there. Any questions or thoughts? Okay.
So real quick, I'm sorry.
Sure.
So if my math is right, about 12 million for the township today?
Well, I don't know that would the county would be expecting that all be township. I think one of the discussions we want to have is certainly we've already had it in the past. We think it would be appropriate at some point in the future, maybe the near future, to talk about transitioning Orange Road to a county road, a county maintained road, given its importance in the county highway transportation network. We think there's merit to that. So that's one of the factors we want to talk about as well. But I don't know that the county is necessarily just looking for Orange Township to pick up the balance. I think there's a desire to work cooperatively and make that cost split something we can each manage.
We talked about that, and I appreciated that transparency. I think a lot of it too, if you remember last year with the $3 million on Orange Road, understanding that would transition and making sure we cheerleaded and made the point that we'll put it here and collectively look at that as all kind of the development of Orange Road. So they were receptive to that, and it's just about partnership and finding the opportunity and the best dynamic to get through it. I'll be interested if we can get that 2 million, at least 10 million out there, and with the TIFs and potential other grants or so on and so forth that we could chase. Maybe we can chip away further, but
sure.
I know this is the number one thing, for folks in the area that use Orange Road. They'd love to see this.
If there's no further questions on this one, I'll keep moving. Big Walnut Interchange. I guess I'll end the project discussion on this one. This is probably the most complicated, but I have probably the least answers at this point. So, Big Walnut Interchange is not something new. It's the discussion about this has been around for 20 years or more, really going back to the 1990s. And in my opinion, I think in a lot of folks' opinion, the need for it is pretty self-evident when you consider we have now, 214,000 individuals living in Delaware County, and only 2 interchanges on I-71. If you look around central Ohio at both I-71 but also I-70, look at the number of interchange access points that our neighbors have to the interstate highway system. We are by far the least served in terms of interchange access per person, the ability to actually get on the interstate highway system. And so we as county residents, your residents in particular, bear the burden of the noise and pollution and the physical separation in the community because of the freeway, and also have a hard time getting to it. We only have 2 access points again. The one nearest to you at Polaris Gemini, although has been recently improved by ODOT, is still far from perfect. It still backs up, certainly better than it was a year ago. So really your residents have a decision to make if they're going south in the morning. Do they fight the slog through Columbus surface streets, High Street, Sancus, Worthington, Galena, maybe go over to Westville by Cleveland Avenue to get to I-270, or try to get through Polaris Gemini, or if you're in the northern part of the township, you just drive up to 36. And so I know maybe not quite as relevant for Orange Township as Berlin. I think that's a much more common traffic movement as you go north from here. But so again, that's kind of at a very, very high level why we think this is a project that's deserving at least of some pretty significant effort. Next slide, I'll give you kind of a snapshot of where we are. So the biggest issue with this interchange is that the traffic projections show a lot of people want to use this interchange. The folks that, as I already said, are living in this area, if they want to get to Columbus, are finding other ways to get there because this interchange does not exist. The traffic models that ODOT and Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission maintain basically show that a lot of traffic will gravitate towards this interchange to get on I-71. That's a good thing and that's a bad thing. The good thing is that should reduce overall vehicle miles traveled for your residents. They can actually take a shorter route to get to their destination and save time. The bad news is that all that traffic on I-71 degrades the operation of 71. ODOT, the Federal Highway Administration, are very, very protective of the interstate highway network. They do not want to see it being used for local trips, getting from Big Walnut Interchange to Gemini. If you ask someone from ODOT, I don't know who you talk to, it's really there for regional and interstate trips, to get from Cleveland to Cincinnati, not to get from Big Walnut to Gemini or I-270. So, any questions on that?
One quick question on that. Is it, have they scoped any other Berlin Township? I know there was some discussion about the right point of entry. And I know it's tremendous amount of work in talking with you folks before about the specific interchange. Anything that came back that would maybe inhibit people from taking those local trips if you stretched it a little further north, I think?
Yeah, so there's a couple things that are kind of involved in that decision. First and foremost is locating the interchange or any interchange at a location that actually does what it's intended to do, which is to connect the interstate highway system to the local road network. We have in the past looked and considered, well, what if we look at, say, Plum Road or Lewis Center Road North or even Jaycox Road, something in that area farther north. The biggest problem with that is, although those roads go east, they don't go west. You got the lake right there. So really the farthest north, east-west, the regional connection in that area of the county is Big Walnut and Lewis Center Road. So one of the biggest reasons this location was chosen is because it has good east-west connectivity all the way from Liberty Township, even Union County for that matter, although we're not trying to create we're not trying to create an outer belt. The reality is that that corridor already exists. And so what we think, it makes sense to connect a corridor we already have to the regional highway system.
Of course, if you go Cheshire, then you've got to inundate a 2-lane bridge, right?
Yeah, so you may be aware Cheshire Road is actually less than half a mile away from where a new companion interchange is being planned at 36. That's another project we're working on. I don't have it on my list here, but happy to give you some details on that if you'd like. Just know that we are working with ODOT to advance that. That is fundamentally a different project, though. That is largely in response to growth that we know is coming in that area. Commercial property, there's a ton of open ground near that interchange that is yet to develop. We know it's coming with or without an interchange, so we have to be ready for it. Big Walnut, on the other hand, although yes, there is some, if you go 2 or 3 miles away from the Big Walnut access point, there is some open ground. For the most part, right around the interchange, that land is either already developed out or it's in the park. It's not going to be developed out. And so Big Walnut is fundamentally trying to deal with the problem we currently have. Sunbury 36 is trying to deal with the problem we know will happen in the next 10 years.
How long, I meant to ask, you may have mentioned it, if you go after this underpass on Orange Road, what's the estimated dig time that thing's going to be down?
So one of the things we're talking about on Orange Road is actually building a temporary road around. Is that what you're asking about?
Yes.
How long
Yeah.
Orange Road would be closed? One of the alternatives we are looking at is basically building a temporary road so that we can keep Orange Road open.
Okay, great.
Construction time frame, we're looking at about an 18-month overall project for Orange Road. You can look if you've watched Columbus working on Lizelle Road, it would be very, very similar.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll keep moving. I know you've got a busy agenda yet tonight, so I want to be respectful of your time. This discussion might be a little late compared to when I think some of your audience could might have been interested to hear this. But I think we at the engineer's office are trying to do some outreach to our township partners to talk about development. I know we get a lot of questions from some of your neighbors, even yourselves, about kind of where we fit into the development picture, and so I want to kind of run through some slides to talk about that. So as you know, we as a county, Delaware, and you as a township, Orange, are governed by Ohio law. You can do exactly what the law tells you to do, nothing more, nothing less. You have to do what the law says. We can't make up our own laws. We do have flexibility to create a zoning code. We have the flexibility to create certain standards, but fundamentally we are governed by the law. So, municipal corporations obviously can basically make any law that doesn't conflict with state law. Next slide. So this is kind of what I thought might be a good graphical depiction of kind of where our authorities lie with respect to platting and zoning. Platting and zoning, I would say for most folks, means the same thing. You consider platting and zoning and development all at the same time. However, us in county and township government know that that's really two separate things. When you go to a city, Columbus, Westerville, they generally have their development departments and their development process combined under a single office. That might be separate departments down the hall from each other, but here in the county and township land, we are literally two or three separate appointed boards entirely. So next slide. So I guess before I leave that slide, if you could jump back. It's clear what our authorities are under law within each of our respective kind of authorities. Those overlap. It's very clear from the discussion earlier tonight. There is some crossover. Road layout, traffic, that is one of the things I think lies in that overlap area where we both have some jurisdiction and some things to say about that. And so that's probably the most recent example of kind of where our responsibilities cross over. Next slide. So platting is simply subdividing. I'm sure you know this. I apologize if this is kind of development 101, but basically platting is merely creating new building lots, either in residential or commercial uses. Plat is simply a map that shows those boundary lines. Platting, next slide please. Platting is different from zoning. You as a township board are authorized to zone land uses primarily, building height, appearance, setbacks, but primarily land use and not so much subdivision per se. So that's fundamentally, I think, where our authorities lie. Next slide. And so I wanted to touch a little bit on, I guess, what exactly regional planning looks at, what the authorities are with respect to zoning versus platting. So street layout, construction of streets or improvements to serve new building lots, that is fundamentally a platting issue. It's something that is specifically mentioned in the statutes that govern subdivision of land. It's It's also mentioned kind of in an indirect way in the zoning statutes, but primarily the authority to ensure that new roads are built to serve these new development lots, these building lots, that lies in the platting statutes. And so platting is done and governed by either a county planning commission or a regional planning commission. So in Delaware County, I know you're familiar with this. We have a regional planning commission made up of a number of member agencies that governs the platting in the unincorporated areas of the county. So I'll stop there just for a second. Any thoughts or questions so far? Slide. So I think, I guess I want to talk a little bit about kind of where we as the engineer's office fit into the process. You're aware we are your engineer by statute when it comes to road maintenance, road construction. We are working with you right now on the Orange Road project. That is one of our duties that is prescribed by law. We are also the engineer, in essence, for the Regional Planning Commission. We are charged with the duty of reviewing and inspecting new roads, bridges, drainage, as well as the platting and land surveying elements of the platting process. And so those are all spelled out really in Ohio law that we have to perform that function. Next slide. And so basically where that authority kind of points to is what can we require of developers? We have, this is probably one of the most difficult topics I deal with because we are constantly walking a very fine line of making sure that development is helping to pay its fair share, but also not overstepping what we are legally allowed to require of new development. New development, subdivision exactions, as attorneys would call it, have been litigated many, many times, and the courts have basically determined what our authority is at the platting and subdividing level. And so basically it has to, there is a landmark case that basically determined there has to be a dual rational nexus between what a local government is asking of a development and what actually can be required, or what has to be required. So that basically means that there has to be a clear, reasonable link between a legitimate government function, that would be public safety, traffic flow, and most of the things you can think of easily, and this new development. But also that whatever is being asked has to also provide some benefit to that development. So you can't, we collectively can't simply ask for improvements that have no relation to that development. Sounds reasonable enough, but obviously it's been tested in the past, so we have a reasonable idea where that limit lies. The other element is what they call the rough proportionality. Basically, what is being asked, and this really comes into play largely when you talk about traffic studies. The types of traffic improvements we can require of a development has to be roughly proportional to the amount of impact. So for instance, we can't say, hey, the next 100 lot subdivision that comes into Orange Township, you have to build an interchange. It doesn't work. It has to be, whatever the requirement is, has to be roughly proportional to its impact. Next slide. So question, when are traffic studies required? Generally speaking, anytime there is a platted subdivision, we will require a traffic study. We require that as a matter of platting. Our authority in that matter is vested in the platting statute. We can also require traffic studies when there is either a new driveway or a new road on an existing public road. So this would come into play where maybe it is either an unplatted lot or a large lot that isn't being platted, but there is a new driveway being proposed. We can actually require that the owner or the person that is developing that lot, creating a new driveway, creating a new public road, perform a traffic study for that. So, questions on that so far? Get a lot of questions about who does the study, why. The short answer is the developer does the traffic study. And the reason for that largely twofold, I guess. The biggest reason is a lot of these traffic studies begin before the property has changed hands, when a developer is in the due diligence phase, or maybe is looking at a property under option, maybe has some elements that they aren't ready to share publicly yet. Once we get involved, once we have a document in front of us, or once we're studying something, that becomes public record. So that's one element. The other element is purely workload. We just don't have the ability to drop what we're doing and have a developer come in and say, hey, I've got a 500 lot development, do a traffic study. Can't do that. What we do is review their studies. We review their studies based on, just like most agencies, we have adopted the ITE trip generation methodology. Basically has a prescribed number of trips that are estimated for each particular land use. It is an average. Some developments generate more trips than others. In the end, though, the most reasonable way we think to deal with those is to use the generally accepted methodology. So. Questions so far? Okay, so.
I have one on that.
Sure.
I know we talked about that privately in our touch base there, but with respect to the traffic studies and the ITE, in our case, with our township and kind of what we hear repeatedly residents are concerned with, industry average, we have often as a board decided that we wanted something more refined and specific to the township. Can you talk about recommendations or the approach there? In that case, I guess the township would be responsible for refining the study or soliciting their own type thing.
Sure. So again, I'm aware that you're looking at the traffic study early in the process, particularly in your overlay district, as a matter of approval to make sure that traffic has been looked at in some respect, and I applaud you for that. In terms of requiring a special trip generation, either number or percentage, I would caution you that while you could go down that road, you would need to treat every development the same, and so forcing one development to use a certain trip generation methodology and then not requiring that of other developments, I think would be difficult to do. Keep in mind the ITE trip generation; those numbers are based on thousands and thousands of data points. The institute has studied subdivisions and these types of land uses all across the country. Some are higher, some are lower. That's just a fact of the matter. I mean, that's statistics. We use the prescribed methodology because it's consistent, and that's what I can tell you is the vast majority, if not, I don't know what percentage. I mean, nearly every local agency uses ITE trip generation methodology. So talking about what we can require of developers, again, keeping in mind, really our authority is vested in the platting, new building lots. We can almost always require improvements along the development frontage. And so that will typically be in the form of either widening the pavement or setting the ditches back, widening the shoulders to make sure it's a safe roadway section along the development frontage. We can very often require turn lanes in and out of the development when they're proposing a new public street intersection that will serve that development. We can typically require some form of upgrade to the nearest adjacent major intersection. So typically that's the kind of in the scoping phase of a traffic study. We get together with the developer and their engineer to kind of define the box. How big are we going to make this study? How far away from the site are we going to go? And so generally speaking, that analysis stops at the nearest major intersection removed from the development. We don't keep, a development in Orange Township doesn't have to start analyzing intersections in Columbus. Yes, is there impact in Columbus? For sure. If those trips are destined towards Columbus to go to work, are they having an impact in Columbus? Yes. Is that something we can reasonably require? No. The short answer is no. And then finally, we can often require limited access streets within the development without driveways. A good example of that would be like Walkway Boulevard. If you drive Walkerwood all the way from Powell Road past the treatment plant, there's no driveways. They're all driveways are tucked back on the side streets. That's by design. We knew that would be a very busy road when that was designed. Made that so that was no one's kind of front yard, so to speak. Next slide. So what can't be required? Basically kind of three umbrella things that we know we can't touch. Again, going back to that rough proportionality. There has to be a clear nexus between what's being asked for and the need for that particular thing. Again, we can't require that a 5-lot subdivision create a new 4-lane highway. It's just not proportional to the impact. Impact fees, you've probably heard this in the past. We as counties, you as townships have absolutely no authority whatsoever to require an impact fee. That is exclusively something, in Ohio at least, that only municipal corporations can do. What is an impact fee? It's basically a fixed fee that you would charge either per lot or per trip generated that has to offset the impact of that new development. A lot of states have impact fees, Florida for one. There is such a thing as a capacity fee if you're building a new, any type of development in Florida. In most locations, you will buy capacity. You will pay a certain amount per either trip or new lot that you're creating. That is authorized under state law. We do not have that in Ohio. Frankly, I will tell you that would solve a lot of the issues we have. We have some difficulty in trying to find a way to reasonably associate impacts from one development to something that makes sense to ask for their contribution to. Impact fees can do that, but again, we just don't have that authority. And then finally, prohibition of access. The short of that is we have to give property owners access to a public road unless the county or the township or the state has already purchased that access right. And when I say purchased, the term limited access, that's what that means. Along a lot of state highways, the right-of-way is actually purchased as limited access, meaning that the abutting properties, when that highway was built, the state at that time actually purchased the access rights to that road. So the abutting properties have no legal authority or ability to put a driveway on those particular highways. That is not every highway. That's not every section of every highway. Interstates are all limited access. That's why there's no driveways, no side roads. Every access is at an interchange by design. US 23 has a good bit of limited access. Not all of it is limited access. Clearly there's a lot of driveways, but some portions of 23 are limited access. Okay. Question? So just to wrap it up, we kind of find ourselves walking this tightrope between asking for everything we can get on behalf of the public when new developments come in, making sure that development is paying its fair share, but we can't cross the line into the territory of just being flat out unconstitutional and requiring more than the law allows us to require. And so we, again, kind of, particularly with our department, we want to make sure that development is paying its fair share. I can tell you it can be very difficult to determine what is reasonable and what it's not, because when you look at some of these traffic studies, you may end up with a particular development maybe creating a a 3% calculated delay at a remote intersection. Well, what do you do with that? So you degraded that intersection by 3%. What does that mean? Could you fix it? Well, not without spending a couple $1 million. Can we require that development of, say, 50 lots, pay $1 million? Probably not legally. So a lot of what we end up doing is getting contributions where we can to offset some of those impacts, particularly at the locations where we can clearly identify some type of degradation. So, and again, our authority is vested in platting. Keep that in mind. Obviously, we're happy to work with you in the zoning phase of a development, as with some of your current projects. But just know that our authority as the county engineer is really tied, and we're joined at the hip to Regional Planning Commission. So when it comes to platting those new lots, that's where we have kind of the hammer, so to speak. So that's where we make sure that those requirements are met. And obviously stating what's pretty straightforward, we have to be consistent and stay within kind of the legal box we have to work in. So that's all I have. Just want to thank you again. I probably ran over my allotted time, but I appreciate your allowing us the opportunity to join you tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks for making time to meet with us too, individually. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Doug, thanks for all your help.
No, that's okay. We appreciate the opportunity for us to come and speak with the board tonight. And again, if there's any questions or concerns for our office, Silas has my contact information and it's on our website. So if there's any questions, feel free to reach out to myself or Robin, and we'll address your questions, take care of your concerns. So thank you.
Appreciate your responsiveness. Sure. Take care. All right.
Would you check the air conditioner?
I think we've outlasted the need for public comment here, so we can go to any agenda changes.
No.
All right. Move through to the consent agenda here. Any questions there?
No.
Make a motion to approve resolution 21-269 and 21-270 of the consent agenda.
Mr. Rumbles?
Yes.
Ms. Tranto?
Yes.
Mr. Rivers?
Yes.
We have some corrections to the previous journal. Make a motion to approve resolution 21-171, correction to August 10th, 2021 journal.
Second.
Mr. Rumbles?
Yes.
Mr. Rivers?
Yes.
Ms. Tranto?
Yes.
Make a motion to approve resolution 21-272, correction to the August 10th, 2021 journal.
Second.
Mr. Rumbles?
Yes.
Ms. Tranto?
Yes.
Mr. Rivers?
Yes.
All right. Zoning report. Any issues tonight that you want to bring forth? You got the zoning meetings.
With the zoning report, we conclude with the backup item. We had the 3 cases that we heard tonight. The sheets got continued to September 7th, and then the other 2 were approved. The next meeting is actually this Thursday, August 19th, for the Board of Zoning Appeals. We're hearing 3 applications. The first one is variance application 21-09 on Highland Hills Drive. This is actually the property that the trustees had approved waiving the fee to make it legal. They're asking for a 1-foot 10-inch variance on the side yard setback. The next application is on Weeping Rock Drive. This application is 21-07. They're seeking a variance from the rear yard setback for 9 feet and also a variance from the height of the fence for a 4-foot fence that is previously installed to have this around their pool. And then we have variance case 21-08 on Job Street. This application is seeking a 3-foot 7-inch variance from the 35-foot rear yard setback. All 3 will be heard on Thursday evening. And then we have a zoning commission meeting Tuesday, August 24th at 7 p.m. This is for rezoning application zone-21-05 and zone-21-06 for Evans Farm amendments to the Evans Farm developments. And then also discussion will be on minor amendments to the zoning resolution. There'll be amendments to modify Article 20, Route 23 Corridor Overlay District at that hearing also. And then so far we have one case for the September 16th Board of Zoning Appeals. It's on Meadow Bend Drive, and they're seeking a variance to allow a fence less than 5 feet to close the swimming pool. That is all that we have for the zoning report.
Any questions? All right, turn it over to operations.
Thank you. Just a few items for operations tonight. The first one, and arguably most important, is resolution to appoint a project manager. Ms. Bunting, Ms. Bonnie, and myself interviewed, scheduled 7 interviews for the project manager position that was recently approved by the board. And tonight I'd like to make a recommendation to approve Alex Rosansky and appoint him to the position. The one tweak to the resolution as it's written would be the effective date being August 25th as his first date as opposed to September 1st as it's listed on the resolution.
Any questions from the board?
I'm glad to see us get back to this position. It really put us behind on some projects, so I'm glad to see us come back. It's an important position.
Right, the board, I need to read the whole thing, but. And I know you're, Mr. Rosansky, is that correct? Right. You're here tonight, so I just wanted to have you stand up, wave, and say hello, and if you have any comments here.
No, I appreciate the consideration. I appreciate the opportunity. I look forward to serving you and the residents of Orange Township.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate you coming out today to introduce yourself. Make a motion to approve resolution 21-273, appointment to full-time position of project manager to the director of operations and establishment of compensation.
Second.
Mr. Grumbles?
Yes.
Ms. Tarantino?
Yes.
Mr. Rivers?
Yes.
Great, welcome to the team.
Thank you, board. Really excited to bring Alex on board. Really excited. So thank you for that. Second item on operations tonight is the approval to advertise a bid for the North Road Trail connection. This again is another project that I picked up here in the last couple of months. This is taking a section of the path from North Road Park and connecting it to the north. As you move away from the park, there was 3 property right-of-ways that need to be acquired. That was completed. Relatively straightforward on the construction of the trail with a couple small modifications, but all the engineering work is done. The one note I'll add to this is that the project has been slowed down a little bit just because of the Indiana bat habitat that exists in the trees that need to be removed along North Road. So we are expecting to put this up to bid, obviously tonight with your approval. Go through the bidding process with construction expected to begin sometime in late September, with trees not being able to be touched until at least October 1st or later. This project should be completed well within the confines of 2021. It did come in estimates under budget.
Even better.
Make a motion to approve resolution 21-274, authorized bid advertisement for the North Road Trail connection.
Second.
Mr. Grumbles?
Yes.
Ms. Tarantino?
Yes.
Mr. Rivers?
Yes.
Last item for operations this evening, board, is a facility use agreement for the Old Team Little League to utilize both fields at Roe Park beginning this Saturday. Actually, a couple of rentals during the week this week, and had attempted to reach out to my predecessor and get kind of email kicked back, and so they're a little behind for scheduling. They're requesting use Monday through Thursday, then all day Saturday at both Roe Park fields. My recommendation is to approve them. They appear to have been great partners with the township in the past and provided great recreational service to the youth of the township. The one note I'll add to this is they are leaving Friday and Sunday over, which I supporter of, so in case we do have residents electing fields outside of those designated times, there will be an opportunity for additional rentals should the need arise.
Any questions or concerns? Make a motion to approve Resolution 21-275, enter an agreement with Olentangy Little League for use of recreational premises located at Road Park.
Second?
Mr. Grumbles?
Yes.
Ms. Tranto?
Yes.
Mr. Rivers?
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Fire report.
All right, trustees, the only thing I come to you tonight with is to, Lowe's was gracious enough to donate 2 grills plus pretty much all the fixings that we would need, one to the 362, one to the 361. About approximately $2,200 worth of equipment and all the grills for our use, and we tell you that it's very much appreciated by the fire department and all the firefighters are enjoying the use already. So those definitely very just
Right. I wanted to thank Lowe's as well. They this came about. They worked with us on the community garden this year and offered us some discounts for gardeners and things like that to come in and purchase plants. And when I took a tour of the firehouse, they had some older grills and spoke to Captain Rice about pellet grills, and he mentioned the team would love them. And while I was at Lowe's talking to the store manager, I mentioned maybe getting a couple grills. He offered to give us grills at cost. And a couple months later, I talked to Chief about it and texted him to see if he was still good on the discount. And he had arranged one. He said he had arranged one better and worked with Weber to get 2 that were about twice the cost of the ones we'd looked at, free of charge, and really nice individual. And even though they're not in the township, really support emergency services. So I was very grateful for that, and glad that the team appreciated it. So thank you, Chief, for your partnership on that too. Make a motion to approve Resolution 21-276, acknowledge and accept donation.
Mr. Grumbles?
Yes.
Ms. Tranto?
Yes.
Mr. Rivers?
Yes.
All right, fiscal report.
All right, I'll hit through this. You should all have an email from me with the July financial numbers as well as the reports to sign in Leanne's office. Highlights: $24,958,061.46 in cash. No change in our investment mix. By fund, $6.5 million in general, $4.2 million in roads, $6.5 million in fire, and $5.4 million in parks. Expenses through July 31st, $7.9 million in expenses and $8.4 million in tax revenue. Next is 2 liquor licenses that I need, 2 liquor licenses that I need consensus to either hold or not to hold a hearing on. The first is for Fork and Cork Kitchen and Bar that is going to be located at Evans Farm Drive. And the second is Meyer Stores, their gas station there at on Columbus Pike on Route 23.
I'm okay with it.
Okay.
Okay with everybody, give consensus not to hold a hearing?
To
Yeah, to not hold a hearing, correct. Okay.
Looking court.
Just 2 other things. The 2022 estimated revenues were submitted to Delaware County Auditor's Office last week. I do have a draft report of the audit, so hopefully that will be out maybe even by the end of the week. And I did get an email confirmation that we were approved for our ARP funds. So they said, I guess they're backlogged, so they said 15 business days. So I'm expecting those by the end of the month. And that's it.
Val, do you have anything from administrative side to share tonight? No? Okay. We have some old business here with OTOC. I know we were given some resumes to consider. I don't know if the board's had time to review all the resumes.
Yes.
And Silas, you're the OTOC point transitioning for the township, right? Still, or kind of working with
Michelle and I are kind of joined on it right now still.
Okay.
But we did go through the several interviews with that, and again, this old business bringing forth the two candidates, one to fill the vacated role and one to fill an alternate role for the OTOC committee going forward.
Do we have any candidates here tonight?
We do. Chrissy's here.
Oh, you hung out, warrior.
She is.
I know, Chrissy, that you have wanted to be on this committee for a while, and I appreciate your patience. I would actually love to have you on the OTOC board. I regret that it's such a short term. Need to be reappointed, it looks like, at the end of December. At least to get your foot in the door, right? I just need to move forward with my fellow trustees.
There was two other candidates. I know Emily was considered an all-star at Allen Creek Elementary PTO, and has done a wonderful job there with their events. I know she's got quite the reputation for getting things done and getting results.
It's great, we could put her on as the alternate member.
Silas, what was the consensus with the people that interviewed?
As Ms. Tranto mentioned, was to appoint Chrissy as to fulfill the existing term, and Emily to fulfill the alternate member role for the time.
Okay.
They're both great candidates. Excited to have both of them around, hopefully.
All right. Make a motion to approve resolution 21-277, Orange Township Outreach and Communications Committee, appointing Chrissy Hagan to an existing term, effective August 16th and expiring December 31st, 2021.
Second. Mr. Gumbels?
Yes.
Ms. Tranto?
Yes.
Mr. Rivers?
Yes.
Make a motion to approve resolution 21-278, Orange Township Outreach and Communications Committee, appointing Emily Elsey to a full new term as an alternate member, effective August 16th, 2021, and expiring December 31st, 2022.
Second. Mr. Gumbels?
Yes.
Mr. Rivers?
Yes.
Ms. Tranto?
Yes.
And then I think the only thing left is executive session. There were two topics I think that had come up. I was made aware of via email. One pertaining to open positions and one pertaining to funds. So do you want to just discuss that openly, or you want to go to executive session for a minute? I mean, there's nothing surprising on the topic I had. Okay. Make a motion to approve resolution 21-279 to enter into executive session for the purpose of to consider the appointment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of public employees or officials.
Second.
Mr. Gumbels?
Yes.
Ms. Tranto?
Yes.
Mr. Rivers?
Yes.
Make a motion to approve resolution 21-280 to return to regular session.
Oops, I still want.
Oops, stop. Just hit the record button, Val. There it goes. Okay. All right. I'm sorry. Can you repeat that, Ben?
I motioned to approve resolution 21-280 returning to regular session.
Second?
Mr. Grumbles?
Yes.
Ms. Tranto?
Yes.
Mr. Rivers?
Yes.
So executive session, we discussed, as previously mentioned, employment matters and appointments, and as well the application of CARES dollars. One thing that I'll need to ask for permission for tonight is to make a motion to work with legal counsel, and specifically Brian Zetz, to draft an employment contract in hopes that we can appoint Michelle Bonney as our permanent administrator.
I'm just thinking we've always done interviews in the past. So I've had Michelle do a great job. I support Michelle, but I think probably still should go through the process of having interviews.
I think when we're confident in somebody and their ability, I'm okay with moving forward. I know that for Director of Operations, we did the interview process, and I think we showed up for those interviews. We did the round robin, and we ended up on a decision for both administrator and a project Director of Operations. But with my experience, and I'm confident that we've made a good decision.
Yeah, I agree. I support Ms. Bonney. I think she's done a great job, but that's always been the standard practice. And if I remember of our last two administrators, I think the deciding candidate we hired was not the top rated at first. I mean, I just think we need to be transparent and differentiate from in the process with that. Like it shows that open interview.
Well, we've never been in a situation before where we had someone who was already qualified for the position. So it's not necessarily how you do things in the past, because things can change. But Mr. Grumbles would probably be there.
I guess my position here is that you reflect on the past and take away from it what it offers. And I think the last two times we've gone through in the past and held interviews, I know I was involved in one of those, and there was pretty extensive debate in different positions, and you know, it was discussed based on you know, the circumstances weren't as ideal as we had, you know, as you would hope, and we worked through that as best we could. In the past two situations, I know that, you know, they also concluded in a less than ideal fashion, and so I look at changing the approach, or I guess the manner in which we go about it, if the opportunity presents itself, and that's why I would be fine with it in this case, because I don't think we've had this opportunity where an internal candidate or internal person has grown with the challenges presented to them, distinguished themselves through hard work and dedication, working hours with the department they run, consistently and extensively past the expected schedules to make sure, and more importantly, what I see as critical is the response from the team. I have yet to encounter anyone in the township as a resident or otherwise that could quickly uplift a group of people and have them working cohesively the way that Ms. Bonney has. That's a testament to who she is as a person and her leadership. Everything we've asked her to do as a township in almost 20 months I've been here, she's hit a home run. She's either finished on time or ahead of time. I'm not sure we would have made it through COVID the way we did without her. She spearheaded that, took the initiative without being asked. to really drive that. I'm a big fan, and I think that she's come in at times that are chaotic and are turbulent and ironed out the wrinkles and kept this township team together. And so, you know, with that, the last thing I want to do when we have a strong internal candidate is create, you know, problems we don't need, take chances that we don't need to take. So I'm fine moving forward.
And I don't disagree. I think Michelle's done a wonderful job. I'm just thinking this through my head as far as how we've handled the employment process in the past.
Yep, a statute allows, in the case of the administrator, to deviate, allows us to appoint at our discretion, and so I'm happy to do that here. All right, a motion, all motions on the table.
Two.
The motion I made to work with legal counsel.
Oh, to work with legal, so you're on 281? Okay. Okay. Mr. Rumbles?
Yes?
Ms. Taranto?
Yes.
Mr. Rivers?
Yes.
No further action. I make a motion to approve resolution 21-282, meeting adjournment.
Mr. Rumbles?
Yes.
Ms. Taranto?
Yes.
Mr. Rivers?